Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session, we are going to be breaking down the match that happened between University of Texas Dallas and Northwood. These are two of the absolute top collegiate teams, for those that are unaware. Most would have considered Northwood the second best team in collegiate, and University of Texas Dallas would have been in anyone who's anyone's top six. I had them rated a bit higher than that, but spoiler alert, I am going to go ahead and spoil the results here. This was an upset. Texas Dallas took down Northwood overall in the homecoming best of three final round here. So we're going to see what happened. We're looking at this. We have our replay code here. We can really break it down, and we're going to get into it. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, so we see here
Ready for battle.
we're rolling out with these teams on our Gardens. This was the first map. This was the locked-in map that everyone had to play for their first map this weekend.
1. Round 1.
And we see something a little bit interesting. So this is probably a more standard rollout that we're seeing right now from Texas Dallas, and this is a Zen ball comp with Sombra. It's pretty normal Zen ball comps. Those are very much a normal thing. This is a little bit of a flexible spot. This is a little bit of a flexible spot. Sometimes you'll see Sigma for more poke, Diva for more dive. Sombra, do you want more dive or do you want more poke in the form of like a Hanzo, an Echo, something along those lines? Pretty standard thing we went here. We went very dive heavy on our Zen ball dive comp. This is a little bit more interesting. It's certainly getting more common. Some of this Orisa Sigma double shield stuff, it's making a bit more of a play into the meta. It started strong, has fallen off a little bit, and now is growing a little bit more in popularity on this patch. And that's what we're walking out with here. I'm a little more surprised to see that one than I am to see Dallas's comp. So if we look at these, this is going to be a dive. Obviously, we have double stun to worry about in the form of McCree plus Brig over here from Northwood, and that's going to mean that any sort of dive onto these things is going to be tough if we don't exhaust this comp a little bit. Usually this comp can just straight surround this comp, and once they've established 3 to 4 independent angles, they can just pull the trigger and dive without really softening up a bunker, without really getting out cooldowns first. Because there's this double stun here, they may feel the need to get a little bit of resource out of them before diving, even after having established those angles. But let's see exactly what happens. I know I talk a lot, guys. There we go. Okay, so we see this. We're trying to establish our angles, but this was a little bit of a bait. We came out here, we did a little bit of, hey, we're going to poke here, and that causes the Texas team to go ahead and start setting up their angles as if this is what they're playing around. You see they're starting to build a concave like this to fight a team that's rotating through here because there was this initial poke here. But now this was actually a fake rotation, and Northwood are going towards point, and now these rotators, these guys here, are going to have to rotate this way, whereas these guys are going to have to go, what do? Do we go back here and go up here? And that's mostly the right answer. Pull back, rotate up over to get control of here while their core goes like this. We'll see if that's exactly what they do. So that's not great. Diva's at least adjusting a little bit. We don't have anything over there. This is too much of one red line. You do not want your team as a dive team to be in like one direct line that you can draw to the opponents, which these guys really are one direct line right now. They didn't really adjust to the rotation. I'm sure it's going to get better. Okay, they are starting to adjust now, where we see we're setting up for our wings. We've got our Sombra and our Diva set up over here. We have our Tracer and our Ball over here. And so if there was any sort of push onto the dive team's backline, we'd be able to pinch that. But more importantly, these guys are going to get to a place where they can dive as these guys can run at them, because Brig does have to be part of the dive. Let's see if this continues. That's a little shallow for our Ball Tracer team. Okay. Diva took way too much damage there. This is something you have to be careful of as the poke team. Diva just took a ton of damage. Louis just took a ton of damage. And Healing is at a premium on this Zen bulk comp. You're looking at Repair Packs, Inspire, which we will not have triggered yet, and Harmony Orb. It's going to take forever to recover this much health, and forever is unacceptable, even with the point not unlocked yet, because this team does a lot of damage. This team puts out a lot more pressure than this team does over time. So these guys just took too much damage in this staging phase. We're not going to be able to recover this before these guys will find ways to do more damage to other people and sort of set the dive back indefinitely. So this was a mistake. This was too much damage. We needed to rotate with cover more in mind and not really pressure this team until we had a better surround. Don't dive this shallow. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, Louis trying to get deeper. Tracer's getting deeper. So they're going to have to go for their hit like now. They're going to have to go for their hit like now. They've recovered some. We see we've already spent Adaptive Shield, and we did mostly what we needed to. Louis coming through over here. We're going to have this coming in here. We're going to have our Tracer coming in here. I'm worried about our backline. Our backline is going to be slow joining this dive. It's clear that we're going to make this hit right now. The point is about to cap. Our angles are set up in mostly the way that we want them, but our backline is pretty far back, as is our Diva. So like these I feel like are going to be late to this dive, so our hit isn't going to be as coordinated as we'd like. It's enough angles, but the timing isn't going to be great. So Ball went in early. Now he's out. Now Diva's in because she was trying to catch up with Ball, and it looks like our actual dive team, our actual Tracer, Sombra, and even Core didn't get the message that this was a real hit, that this wasn't just a gentle disruption. Sometimes when you're playing against a team, especially a team that you need to soften up before doing your real dive in, you'll have something like a Ball roll through, like a Tracer in to try to clip something and then get out, and then recover some of your own resources, but then go in later. So you might go, hey, this is Ball, it's going to go in, it's going to soften stuff up again, and on the next cooldown cycle, we'll go in for real. And that would be fine. It would be your Ball and Tracer go in and then back out type thing, but your backline's not going to be joined. It would be very similar to a double bubbles first entry where they go, hey, our Winston is going in with his bubble, but this isn't real. Our backline isn't going to join for this one. But this doesn't look like it was that. This looks like it should have been the real dive, and we just didn't get the memo. Or at least Diva thought it was the real dive, and Diva's not going to join if it's not the real dive. By the way, if people are saying something in chat, please ping me in Discord, because I'm not seeing anything in chat, and it could just be that you guys are all sitting in silence, which is fine, but there's enough of you that I'd usually have seen something by now. So I can probably fix it if it's not playing nice. Okay, so this is what I expected to happen. The dive was not timed appropriately. The tanks went in like it was a serious dive. The backline wasn't close enough for it to be a serious dive. The DPS didn't really go in until after the tanks were out. Not a big deal. We're going to see how Northwood sets up here. Northwood is setting up, and they are mostly not stacking all in one place. Let's get, where's Season here? So Season's playing up on the high ground with some core. We're stacking more here than I'd like, but we do at least have Cowman going, hey, I'm going to make this entrance difficult. So even if what's going to happen, even if what does end up happening is Dallas forces Cowman to go rejoin his team and forces this team into a tight bundle, which is not the best way to play this comp, even if that is what happens, it's going to have to be earned first, where they're going to have to spend time and resources pushing back Cowman, and Cowman is going to get some cover and support while he does this. That said, we are setting up roughly correctly for the retake in that we have ourselves we've sent our flankers to the far side through the opposite hookah there. And by we here, I mean Dallas. Ball's going to come back a little. We've elected on Dallas's side to go more poke heavy. You'll notice we swapped into the Hanzo and the Sigma, and that's okay. They may be doing this specifically because they feel this is too hard to dive with the double stun plus lamp here, plus fortify, plus healing station. There's a fair amount to dive through here. They may feel they have to exhaust the resources on this a little bit, which is understandable. Love the content, coach. Did you love the bird? I deleted it a few times. Thank you for the 199 super chat there, Adam. So we look at this, and I expect that Dallas is making this swap because they feel that they can't dive this team right away when setting up the angles. That was not the problem last time. The dive was too disjointed. They had the angles set up, but they needed to wait like one more second for their backline to be close enough before pulling the trigger on that. So it was really just a case of, as well as, not take so much staging damage on their tanks there. But that may have been the wrong conclusion that was reached, and this is the sort of thing you switch into when you feel like we have to exhaust a team harder before we dive them. This is the sort of thing that you'd go, oh, we're playing into Brawl, let's exhaust Brawl harder before we dive it. But this is a bunker. It's a harder to dive bunker, but it is a bunker, and you can dive it pretty fast if you've got your angles. Hey, McDowell. But we should now see red team playing this a little bit slower. Season's dropping for the point contest. That's not too wild. Obviously, your Orisa here has a better ability to contest this point over time than your Sigma does. You might like your Sigma up on high ground where they can give a more permanent barrier to their core, but the reality is Fortify, Shield, Sigma's armor. Sigma's more durable on point than, Orisa's more durable on point than Sigma is. Generally makes sense to be the contest. If this was Orisa plus Diva, Diva would be your contest, but that's not what we have. Okay, we have some angles set up here. You'll notice again they've done this correctly where they've set up their backline. Oh, and I actually missed this. They actually double flex supported here, so they went super hard poke with their dive comp. So this is a dive poke hybrid that is leaning very heavily into its poke elements here. And you'll notice they've set up again with this core, this backline, this poke support line back here, where if you wanted to go at them, you would be in a situation where, okay, they're protected. If you run at them, you can get hit from multiple sides to get run at them. If you run at these guys, getting hit by these guys and these guys isn't as hard. You can actually line of sight them. But these guys are the most protected as we're going for this dive. They're going to try to punish ball. Louis gets a pretty big adaptive shield off of it, and we're able to connect. So this is good here, where you see this, and this is pretty much exactly what we want to do. If we're struggling, maybe not exactly what we want to do, but if we're struggling with coordination, this can work, because now there's really two divers to coordinate. You might still think, oh, we should walk our backline in and hit the dive. You don't have to walk your backline in as part of the dive. The reason you walk your backline in is to get your Brig more value, and then your Zen goes in with your Brig to still be protectable by your Zen, by your Diva, by your Sigma that's going in, that sort of thing. Well, here, if we've gone with Bap Zen instead of Brig Zen, they never really need to walk in as part of the coordination. We care a little bit less if our Sigma walks in than our Diva does. We now have a Hanzo instead of a Sombra, so now we really only need to coordinate these two, and we can keep doing light dives repeatedly, just coordinating these two, while trying to get value out of the rest of these guys poking. So the coordination level sort of becomes a little easier, and given that they struggled with that on the last dive, that does make sense. What is Soldier doing in blue comp? Why not Hanzo, for example, or Ashe? Part of the reason that you'd run Soldier instead of Hanzo or Ashe here is going to be that I'd be fine with a Hanzo, but part of what you're getting out of Soldier is you're getting a little bit of mobility. You'll notice there's very little ability to actively go out and contest flankers, to actively control somewhere different. Sigma's sometimes going to go off to go try and do things like he did, but he's very overwhelmable, outnumberable. No one is too comfortable wandering away from this comp. No one is terribly mobile wandering away from the bunker, but bunker doesn't actually want to only just control one area, and Soldier has a little bit more ability to go elsewhere to freelance. Now, he's still not going to do it if the other team is super flanker heavy, like when it had Tracer Sombra, it's too easy to catch him, to punish him, and that would still probably happen here, but the pick was probably originally with a, hey, we want the ability to flank, to take multiple angles, to pressure, say, a Brawl team if the other team rolled out on Brawl from different places. And he's just a little more flexible for that. If this team had Hanzo plus Tracer, that would surprise no one. If this team had, you also will often see these bunker comps with a Genji in them, with a Tracer in them, with a Sombra in them, and they'll generally sort of bring one flanker, and going with this McCree Soldier is sort of a compromise of your Soldier isn't really a flanker, but they can off-angle a little harder, a little easier than some of the other poke options. Okay, so they were able to get that pick. Their two divers did coordinate reasonably well, and they're now trying to hold their angles here. And they can literally just hold this. This is what we want. I don't like Petal dropping here. I wanted Petal to stay here, and we pressure from this direction, we pressure from this direction, we pressure from this direction, we pressure from this direction. This is a win. Like, this is a win even if they hadn't gotten McCree. If they've managed to bunch up this team, yes, they're spending Fortify. Yes, they're probably going to spend hands. Yes, they'll have Lamp. Even if McCree was still alive, this right here is a win. You can outpoke this team with your worst poke comp if you're surrounding them in multiple directions like this. Yeah, Petal's going in too hard. There's no reason for Petal not to be poking from back here. I don't care if Petal is doing pathetic damage, like tickle amounts of damage back here. Petal does not need to go into the middle of this, especially before Louis has gone in here. This should be, I'm going to hold the angle and be so much more annoying to you guys, make you think about the extra damage from over here, rather than getting higher damage but having to be blink heavy in here. Petal can go in as Ball's going in, but that's not what is happening here. So a little bit disappointing. Also a little bit disappointing to see our angles collapsing. This is worse. Like, this is getting worse. We absolutely had the win condition, and we let it go. And the window is scary, and you can kite the window a little bit. You can close angles on the window a little bit. But you can also go, hey, Petal can be in. If they're all shooting through the window this way, Petal could have been in back here doing work to force them to either walk this way away from the window or step through their window and shoot in the other direction, in which case, very easy to close the angle. This is causing too much of Dallas to now be in the same direction again. Petal's in the middle of it, which we don't like, and the rest of Dallas is now, well, this is their angle control. That's so much worse than the angle control that they had before.
Wait for it.
Blue team looks stat and upset indeed. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't like totally undersell this. I mean, these are good players over here. These players are certainly known on ladders. This is certainly, you know, everyone recognizes Petal as a contenders player. These are not bad players by any means. This would have been a top 6 Overwatch school by anyone who's anyone's count, but this should have been the number 2 Overwatch school. So we're seeing what happens. Am I crazy, or is May not a bad pick for Northwood instead of the Soldier for a stronger ability to withstand the ball tracer dive while still having reasonable poke damage? I wouldn't go with it. Like, I get what you're doing. You're adding yourself a brawl aspect, which is hardening your team against the dive a little bit, but I'm probably not willing to do that. Like, you've already hardened your team pretty darn hard against a dive with the Brig, the Brig and the, words are hard, McCree. If you wanted to be more anti-dive, my next move would be swapping Cowman over to D.Va rather than bringing in a Mei. I get what you're saying, if the Ice Wall can help you sustain, but there's so many angles that can be taken. Ice Wall just is not that hard for more mobile dive teams to get around with, again, tracers and balls. I wouldn't personally recommend that one. If I had to go, hey, we need to be even more hardened against dive, it would be D.Va as the next swap here. Yeah. Or a Torp. Torp would work better as well, you're right. Okay, so this fight was thrown away a little bit. Don't get me wrong, Windows and ult and it's cool and all, but Dallas had this fight and they let it turn against them. And that window was fine, but it wasn't good enough to have actually turned it. This is a mistake of Petal's positioning. He surrendered good positioning to try to do more damage directly himself, rather than continuing to make the team uncomfortable and the opposing team take more damage. And then we had, again, a little bit of miscoordination where Louis went in hard while Petal was backing out. Louis went in hard during the window while Petal was backing out. And I don't know if that's Louis or Petal's fault, but, like, that's a mistake that we needed to not have happen there. I'd probably put more of that on Louis because, hey, we went in pretty hard during the window, and it didn't look like we poked them extremely hard as we went in there, which we'd open our angles and poke. I probably didn't want to do that. I probably just wanted to go, hey, close the angles. All of you are relatively safe from this window. So again, you'll see they're not totally stacking. You know, this might beat conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom might be, oh, we all stack together so we're safe from the dive. They're spreading out a little bit. They've got over here, but then they've put their soldier over here. Can their soldier get back to their team pretty quick? Yeah. Can these guys poke to protect their soldier? Absolutely. But they're spreading out a little bit, at least initially, to make this harder on the dive. It's harder to get a surround on this soldier, for example, like this, a 3-directional surround, if that surround is going to cause this person to be surrounded by these 2 groups. Harder to get a surround on this group if surrounding this group is going to cause you to go, hey, let's put someone here, let's put someone here, let's put someone here. Well, these 2 groups are vulnerable to this person and this group, right? So that's sort of how poke is protecting itself from other dives. Yeah, Torb is good against dive here.
Cease.
Torb would make the Tracer and the ball unhappy. That said, there's enough poke now on red team that I wouldn't recommend a Torb swap. Like, there's enough poke. It shouldn't be that big a deal to deal with Torb and his turrets and the separation and the armor between the Hanzo, the Sigma, the Zen, the Bap. I wouldn't go for Torb anymore.
It's high noon.
Okay. And that's basically what we want. They're pushing up. They pushed it back. This was always going to be tough to push into. Northwood had some level of angles. They were willing to spend their ults in the form of Supercharger and High Noon there. That's fine. We're ultimately pushing back in. Now they're going to flux. This is a perfectly fine trade, except that we are approaching last fight territory. So yeah, was always going to be a hard fight to push into if you have a situation where they can spend Supercharger, Flux, and High Noon like that, and just be like, how are you ever going to push us when the ult economy over here just wasn't quite there. It looks like this fight was forced a little too early, and Minefield is fine, but it's not at the level of Supercharger or Flux there. So they needed to slow this fight down. They needed to recognize what the ult economy was, slow this fight down, and poke a little longer, even though they're the slightly worse poke comp, because look at how many ults were close to coming online here. And you see this again. This might look like bad positioning, but it's really not from Northwood. They've got someone contesting over here. They had someone soldier over here who's now backed up a bit because he will get pushed back, and that's a thing that happens. You contest your angles as a poke team, but as you get pushed back, you accept that you get pushed back. You're still making them earn it. So we had Orisa contesting here. We had Sigma contesting here. We had a DPS contesting over here. They slowly get pushed back into a diveable thing, absolutely, but you're going to have to earn that from them.
Time's up.
Okay. And they pulled this off. So let's take another look at how they pulled this off. Oh, I'm not sure why my rewind took me there. So Landon did go down. What did we lose Landon to? We lost both supports from Dallas. But ultimately, we are able, Petal's able to go find Landon and take him out. And that's going to spell... Why are you here? That's just not really a good place for you to be. You were trying to play from here, retreat back a bit so that Lep would be with you. You knew that you were down your other support, and you were trying to go back to where Lep would be so that you'd get protection, and it made you more vulnerable. There's not a great reason for Landon to be over here. Landon should have been back over here with the core, unless I missed it and Landon was previously eliminated, and he just got eliminated coming back here. Let's take another look here. Why are you over here, Landon? You must be coming back from the... You must have gone down in the previous fight. Okay. And Petal recognizes that you're alone and is going to force the 1v1. Okay.
Hey there.
Like, you could get help in here is the thing. You could definitely get help getting back in here. Soldier is applying pressure here, and that pressure matters, but we could have gotten help getting you back in. I'm a little surprised that we're taking this path alone, and we're not getting a bit of help from, hey, Soldier, cover this, help get me in, that sort of thing, but that's okay. Sure. Okay. So that's the mistake that's effectively going to cost them. Now they've been having to go forever without support on this point. Lep has shown up on Lucio, which isn't really the hero he wants to be on. He's here because he thinks they can put it away. Okay. Lep might want to be on Lucio, but the comp doesn't want to be on Lucio. I should put that another way. And then they recognize that this team is exhausted. They haven't had good sustained resources. They had a Lucio for a bit, but they haven't had either of their supports really for a while here. Really probably don't even need this window to finish this off, but we'll take it. No, I know who Landon is. They should all stand behind Ryan Shield to make you comfortable about what she's here. They're a little too good for that. Landon committed to his position. On this map, Hanzo Ash still would take Widow above the point, so they would crossfire on point. Yeah, Landon is good. Like, Landon is good. Everyone on Northwood is good. Everyone on both these teams is good at the video game. But Landon is not so good that he can just go, yes, I'm going to dual pedal on Tracer as BAP and expect to win every time. He's not that good. He should have called for help to rotate in. There's a reason teams go to pretty extreme measures to rotate their flex support back, to rotate their flex support back to the point when there's Tracers, Sombras, and Hammonds on the board, which, hey, there's Tracer and Hammond on the board right now. EU's collegiate scene is much smaller than NA's collegiate scene. Some EU schools do field Overwatch teams, but they do not have the Overwatch Homecoming Cup. They don't have the Blizzard support over there right now. Okay. So now we have Texas is setting up like they're a poke team. They've sort of made themselves into a poke team, like we talked about. Artsy likewise made the swap to Lucio here, and Lep is back on Brig. So Lep was only ever on Lucio because it was trying to be the end of the match. He's back on Brig because that is, of course, the better actual pick in this situation. And then Artsy went to Lucio because Artsy went, wait, this is the last match last fight if we don't win it. I need to get back as fast as I can. So he's just doing what he can here. We, of course, have these guys going for their two-man dives. But again, I'm not really liking the timing. So I look at this. I don't want this hit. I don't really want this hit because this team is too tightly grouped for me to justify hitting it. Where's Petal? Petal is going to be late to helping this hit. He's over here, but he's going to be late to helping this hit if he does hit it. So this is basically 1v6, 1v5 territory, and I don't really want to do it because my backline, this is a feat. If you go into a 1v4 as ball, when the other team's front line is fighting your backline, that's value. You're stopping their backline, the 3 people, the 4 people that you're in on, from helping their front line beat your backline. That is value. If you go into the opponent's 1v4, 1v5, 2v6, whatever, as ball, as tracer, whatever, when your backline cannot help and their front line is not on your backline, that's not value anymore. That's just feeding. And unfortunately, Louis, you are feeding here. You should not expect to get any eliminations or disproportionately force health or cooldowns when your backline can't help you. There wasn't a good reason to go in here. If there was just 1 or 2 people here and you and Petal could jump on them, that would be fine. But that's not the case. Well, sometimes feeding happens. I'm not going to blame this match on Louis, for example, but... Okay, so throw everything in the kitchen sink at this because they have to. They can't drop point. They lost their ball. They know they're in trouble. Obviously, Northwood wants to take this fast, and Northwood is going to throw down some ults. I hate that their soldier is here. I hate that they are using a hit scan ult through window. I would be so much happier, especially since we know we just took out ball, if my soldier and preferably my Sigma had run up in this direction. And my visor came from over here as my Orisa and window and BAP went this way. This would have been so much better, and it was relatively safe given that you're not going to run into a ball tracer here. The max you can run into is a tracer, and you weren't going to run into the tracer because your Kree knew where the tracer was. That just may have not been communicated. This was always going to be better. I would so much rather visor from this direction and window from this direction, and you're not going to get caught by flankers, than visor through my window. So much better. So much better. For those that don't understand what I'm talking about, I have done videos on this specifically with High Noon and window, and you can see a good example on this channel. I did a 47-second video or something on it. It's great. You should check it out. Okay. This happens. They're going to answer with Flux Dragon because The only reason this Flux Dragon answer even sort of works, which of course is answered with Lamp, is because, hey, all of the threats are coming from one direction. What if there's a attack visor going on over here while there's a window? Well, we're still going to have to Flux Dragon this, but there's still attack visor. We can't really follow up on our Flux Dragon at all. We can't possibly break lamps. We're having to take cover against this. It's so much stronger. Nice ult. Nice. Ultimately, they're still okay. And by they, in this case, I am going to mean Northwood. They had the lamp. The lamp didn't get destroyed in time. There wasn't quite enough follow-up on the Flux Dragon to take out the lamp and get eliminations. And that should be the round. Nano High Noon window. It killed the payload. You forgot the Mercy boost. And the Discord. I don't know how you Discord a payload.
It's high noon.
They're just staggering. They're right to do this. I mean, I'm calling it staggering, but really what they're doing is they're going onto the point one at a time, and you'll notice they are putting one person at a time on the point. They're not putting a bunch of people early on the point. They're going one person at a time, and if they can work themselves up to 3 or 4 people being alive to potentially go on the point at once, at that point, they would go, okay, let's rush the point and actually try to get an elimination and potentially flip this, win this fight. But in this 1v4, 2v4 type situation, they're not putting 2 on the point, they're putting 1 at the point, and that is proper procedure for teams to go, we're going to go 1 at a time, really looking more to stall than to get eliminations until we can potentially build up a backlog of 3 or 4 people, at which point we'll flood it and actually try to get an elim 4v6, 4v4, whatever the case may be.
Ready for battle.
This is really very interesting and great content, but today I'm committed to writing my thesis. Maybe see you later. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Off to write your thesis during a collegiate review. I like it. I like it. Nano plus window equals 2 supports. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, so now we're coming out here on City Center.
4,
And it looks like Northwood again wants to roll out on a Orisa comp, a bunker comp of sorts. Again with Cowman on Sigma, whereas we are going to see, that was just a TP drop that we saw from Texas here, Texas, Dallas, and now we're on the same comp they opened on last time. So this looks to be the default that they wanted to run on both points. This looks to be what Northwood wanted to run on both points. We saw adjustments from both of them into a much heavier poke comp from Dallas. From Northwood, we really just saw Lep on Lucio for a bit, and that was overtime shenanigans. But okay, let's go here. And now we're going to see the rollouts, and these rollouts matter. So this is a little interesting. This is probably based on scouting information. Getting control of elevator and high ground is, of course, better than getting control of the other parts of the map, or any individual other part of the map. The problem that you run into is if you're not running a Lucio, you don't know that you're going to get to elevator first. So it can be a little bit dangerous because if one team is running Brawl, the Brawl team is going to get here first, and they're going to win a fight with most people if they show up here first, and both teams try to fight for this immediately. Now, a dive team can beat them by taking angles, a poke team can beat them by taking angles and distance, but if there had been a Brawl team right here, when this poke team got here, and this poke team did not have any forward scouts, they did not have a Sombra ahead of them, a Tracer, a Diva, anything like that, this could have spelled trouble and been bad for these guys on this opening rotation. They just guessed that that wasn't going to be the case, and they probably guessed that this wouldn't be the case over watching tape, perhaps over having scrimmed these guys before, perhaps whispering to other people that had scrimmed both of them to find out, hey, what do they like to run, that sort of thing. But they probably knew that they weren't going to run into Brawl here, or thought it wasn't likely, because this would have been a little bit of a risky open if that was if they'd run into Brawl here. That said, we're going to see that Dallas is going to adjust, and Dallas should adjust in such a way, and they did. They were worried, hey, we're going to run into something heavier than us that is going to go here first. We would love to put our Zen Brig backline on high ground, but we're worried a heavier team than us is going to beat us there, so we're going to opt out of the advantageous position and instead play for the secondary position, which would be get a flank team over here, get a flank team over here, and then put your core either back here or back here. And then, hey, look, if you try to rush our core, we collapse on you. You try to rush our core, we collapse on you. You sit here, even with the high ground, we poke you from here, we poke you from here, we poke you from here. We slowly exhaust you. Even though you have the high ground, we have a better concave on you. We have more angles. We can try to exhaust you. And you can see they are playing to exhaust. They are not playing for a hard hit right now. And this is mostly good adjustments as Northwood is trying to slowly rotate their way. Oh, got a smaller drawer than I like there. Northwood is mostly trying to rotate their way onto the back line. Neither team has Lucio, so it's going to take a while to do that. I don't love this adjustment. I like that the team that was over here, going over here to stay behind this team is correct, as our core is here. But our other flank team, this flank team that was originally here, rather than circling around so that we only have two teams, what they should have done is actually just put themselves out over here-ish, so that there's a situation where they're poking in, this flank team is poking from behind, core is poking this way. If you try to just run it on this core team, you still get hit in multiple directions. That's what they should have done. This is strictly worse. Okay, that's fine. Louis is not feeding this time. He's just going to soften them up, to delay them, to mess them up a bit, to get some cooldowns out. And he's doing it as they're trying to rotate. They do not want to stop and fight him. D.Va's gone back to her core, which is good, but you can see D.Va's taken more damage than we would have liked. I would like D.Va to go get this mini. I really would. We might be thinking, oh no, save that for the supports, but we should do that because this team is not yet on top of us, and I want D.Va to have more health when this fight starts. And I'd probably call the hit here. I would probably look at this and call the hit. Again, Landon's out of position. This is not the first time that this has happened. Maybe it was coming back from spawn on the previous map, but Landon let himself get separated. Landon is not a soldier. Tyler, if Tyler was here, no problem. I'm not going to object. If Cowman is here on Sigma, no problem. I'm not going to object. Landon should not be here alone. Maybe Landon could be here with Lep. Maybe Landon could be here with Cowman. Landon could be here with Cowman. Landon cannot be here alone. And yes, we're in this situation where he's going, yes, I can get Louis, and Louis is probably out of cooldowns right now. That's probably what dragged Landon to be aggressive, but this is not ladder. You do not know where their Sombra is. Louis could be baiting you for this, and Louis can absolutely roll right back through you. So we look at this where, hey, Louis does in fact have his cooldowns, and you might think he's weak, but you're about to get hacked and then hit a roll through plus Sombra damage, and you're going to get eliminated or hacked and not be able to lamp. Okay, maybe your reactions are good enough and you lamp and that's fine, but like, this is not good. They've potentially outbaited and played you here, and this is greed going after the ball here of, oh no, I'm going to go finish that. No, that's Soldier's job, that's Sigma's job. You can't be this separated alone. If he was not here, if Landon was with his team right now, again, our tank health is a little bit lower than we'd like, which part of that just speaks to the skill of Northwood. Northwood is putting pressure on these tanks, not letting them stage well. But if our health was any higher right now, and Landon wasn't right here, going after Landon as the play right now, we would right now be calling our hit. We would be going Ball go in, D.Va go in, Brig go in, Zen will go in with them, Sombra goes in here. This is our hit. These guys are contained in one room. They don't really want the room. And you guys might be going, wait, why don't they just cap the point first? They could cap the point first. That's probably what they're going to try to do, other than the fact that Landon is here. But ultimately, you have your angles. You do want to hit on this comp while this comp is somewhat foolishly stacked this tightly. There's the hack, but we're not going to get help. Okay, repair packs on pedal. Landon's able to... Really? Did Landon get that charged fast enough? I thought we went for the hack immediately. Did he go for the jump? He was already in the air when that came in. Okay, cool. That's fine. And because we didn't get the help, Louis didn't double back to help on this Landon, pressure this elimination. The tank's health is a bit low. Petal was a bit removed from the fight. We're now in a slightly awkward position because Dallas is in a slightly awkward position because Northwood is pushing out of their little safety zone there to get more point pressure here, as well as to get a little bit more map control. Obviously, Dallas is not in bad shape here, but they're in, again, this situation. Now they're in bad shape. They're, again, in this situation of they're getting poked down. They're getting pressured too hard in staging. They're taking too much damage, unfortunately. And that's the thing. That's what this comp is supposed to do. The way that a poke comp wins against a dive comp, because dive beats poke, the way that a poke comp beats a dive comp is you never let them dive. You put so much pressure, generally on their tanks, but on their divers, that, hey, they can't ever make the dive happen. If they do so, it's just going to be a feed. If a ball goes in with 200 health, it's going to be a feed. If a diva goes in with 300 health, it's going to be a feed. That sort of thing. So that's what you do, and they are doing a good job of it. That said, there were openings to take advantage of. Okay, so this is going to be rough, and this is going to be rough because we've talked about this before, but this map, as a King of the Hill map, its biggest flaw, or unique design feature, however you want to think about it, is that this is a lot of open space with pretty poor cover. This is a lot of open space to have to rotate against with pretty poor cover. And we can see that Dallas is trying to solve this by rotating this way, and that's a little bit better, but it's still not amazing. You can shoot across like this, you can shoot across like this, you can shoot across like this, you can have someone over here, you can have someone over here that's doing the poking. This makes it a little bit better, but this is just a really rough, and University is really rough on the rotation in terms of there's a lack of cover. That's especially a problem when you're playing against a poke team. It can be a little harder to win out here as the poke team, but once you've won, if you've won cleanly and don't have people running back from spawn and you're able to forward hold like this is hard to rotate through. So we could easily see a situation where Dallas gets staggered a bit here. Okay, they do not. They're going to go ahead and pop their window because they would like to get some eliminations and force staggers. And really, I would say what the problem here was, and the reason that they're not getting staggers, is because they set everyone up over here. We can rewind a little bit further. So they push out here to go do this, and this is good. Obviously, Sombra and Ball are already over here, and that's fine, but we do need to be sending about 2 people over here. We should have a situation, especially with these 2 still not spawned yet, we should have a situation where we go, yeah, it's okay, we'll have our Orisa and our BAP over here, that's great, but let's go ahead and send our... Well, I don't know, we could go Sigma plus Tracer, or hey, Sigma plus Soldier, or Sigma plus McCree. Let's send our Sigma plus one of our DPS, I'd probably pick Soldier, over here, so that now we have much better threats, much better sightlines, much better concern there. And you might be going, no, they could get in trouble. Soldier plus Sigma could get dove, and they can't defend themselves that well. Well, there's available crossfire here from the other team, but also, you're not going to be able to get very many people up here. There's not enough cover on the way up against threats from these 2 directions. Anyone who shows up to dive them is going to already be weak except for the Sombra. So they'll be okay. And this is an improvement we can see from Northwood. And somewhat consistent. Cowman's separating a little bit, but Cowman's a bit late to make this separation. This separation should have been faster. These guys are already partially rotated in by the time it happens. And Cowman seems to be the only one who's interested in it. Other than Landon, who's the wrong person. A little bit better. But they didn't get as much poke pressure as they could have on the way in. Once again, we've started getting a little more pokey on the side of Dallas. They've now gone ahead and gone, hey, we're going to run Zen BAP instead of Zen Brig, and that makes sense. There's no one that's going to dive them on this team here, so that does make sense. Brig loses some of her value, and they've also put in the Sigma instead of the Diva. Sup, that's me. Hey, Nuntype, how you doing? How you doing, Nuntype? If you have questions or objections or want to tell me what your guys' thought process was at any point, feel free to do so. But yeah, you've made your swap over to BAP there, and I'm assuming for the reasons I said. Okay. Ultimately, it's too much. We weren't able to get enough of Red Team behind these guys, enough of Dallas's team behind these guys. We wanted to keep our ball and Sombra behind them. They had to do some level of roll through in order to, create disruption to help your team rotate in. But ultimately, the poke comp is pretty good at punishing teams on the way in, especially on this map. Temporal said mean things about your ball. I did. I've also said mean things about Landon, to be fair, though. I've said some mean things about Louis. I've said some mean things about Petal. I've said some mean things about Landon. I've suggested that Tyler should be off-angling more. Doesn't quite hit the level of mean things. Really nothing I've said has been all that mean. Okay, so now they're in a little bit better shape, except that why is Landon off-angling so hard? This is a little bit better, but they're going to make it worse. Okay, so you guys go for a swap here. Petal Widow, it's not going to be the answer. It could have right off the bat potentially got something there, but it's not going to be the answer. We should not be stacking this hard. We should definitely be going, hey, before Arissa was over here, you could have chosen to leave her over here and played Sigma over here, but usually what you do is, again, give me Sigma plus Soldier over here, or maybe Sigma here, Soldier here, but something to give us a little bit more of a threat. Yes, Sigma has range limitation issues.
It's high noon.
This is so much more powerful. If you go 4 sources of damage over here, high noon over here, or vice versa. So much more powerful. You do not need high noon coming from your core. Dallas, I promise, already is concerned about putting cover, putting defense matrix, putting Sigma shift, putting things between these 4 people. Should be 4 people, is 6 right now, and them. There's already enough poke that they're worried about it. You don't need high noon. You want high noon coming from somewhere else, I promise.
It's high noon.
Okay, ball's setting up correctly, Sombra's setting up correctly. They're going to ultimately pressure point to pull people back a little bit. Northwood's going to get cute here and pretend to pull back, but what they're actually going to do is pretend that all 6 of them are reacting, and then actually, as this causes the rotation in, they're going to go up for their flux, and what they really did is they only sent 2 back. And this is a reasonable 2 to send back. I actually like this from Northwood. It was very well executed. But ultimately, the window countered by the EMP and then going for the Transcendence here, this should be the more powerful answer. This should do it for them. It's expensive. Everyone used ults, but this should work out for Dallas.
I've got you in my sights.
Yeah, visor won't matter. You just shouldn't have committed that visor. Temporal has a hit list. Ouch. Louis said he played bad against them on first map. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so now we're set up here, and this isn't my favorite. So we have map control. We see that they're trying to rotate in this way. We'll rewind just a little bit, because you guys didn't lose anyone on the way in. You guys won that last fight cleanly. You should be trying to do to them a very similar thing to what they did to you. You guys have perfectly good poke. Yes, their poke is better than your poke, but they're having to rotate through open, whereas you can hold angles against them. You should be doing a very similar thing with something along the lines of, hey, let's send our Sigma plus BAP up here. Let's send our Zen plus, I don't know, Sombra over here. Yes, ultimately, they're going to win a poke battle, and you guys are going to fall back, but you should be pressuring them on the way in, and then we should fall into better positions. We do not need to have preset like this back on point. We won that last fight cleanly and should take advantage of the fact that we could have punished this a bit harder on the way in. That said, let's see what we fall into. I don't mind Artsy shouldn't be this far forward if the rest of you are going to be back here, but the reality is the rest of you shouldn't be back here. Like, you have to pick on this map. Are you going to have high ground control, or are you going to punish after one fights, or are you going to punish the rotation back? And usually, if no one on your team was eliminated, you have all 6 alive, this is better than this is. If you guys had lost people, yes, you'd go, hey, let's use this time to get our backline up here. Totally fine with me. But you didn't, and therefore you shouldn't be here. You should have taken advantage of this instead. So I actually think Artsy is right, but Artsy, given what his team did, is wrong. I can live with this, but I really want better map control. I really want better map control, guys. There's absolutely no reason that right now I shouldn't be in a situation where I have a flanker hanging out here and a flanker hanging out over here. And I can count Petal as this flanker. That's fine with me, actually. But where's my Sombra or Ball over here? Like, I'm good with my BAP here, my Zen here. I'm good with that. Works for me. But I need my flanker set up. I need to, even as these guys rotate forward, I want them to rotate into a worse and worse concave, and I want to keep adjusting my flankers to keep that strong concave on them. No way! No way! That's your angle. Why is this the side of your angle? It's so easy for them to back up out of this. It's so easy for them to back up out of this, and it's so much harder if you're instead in a situation, and if you guys wanted to hit them here, I've got no problem with it, but I'd have kept my Zen up here, where my Zen is threatening this way, and then pops over this way and is shooting, and I would have had, again, a flanker over here, and my Zen would not have been terribly vulnerable, because if this gets pushed, my flanker can make a little havoc as my Zen rotates out, or as my Zen rotates out, as they get to here, because they're chasing my Zen, my flanker comes in, my BAP is shooting them, oh, they're caught in a terrible situation. Like, this is not a good hit from you guys. It's too shallow. And Petal's going in this way too, as opposed to having been pre-set up over here to go in from this way, which would have made it quite a bit stronger, though not as much stronger as having, say, your Sombra over here would have. Your Sombra's late. Okay. Using trig, how do you off-angle to the proper... I explained how they needed to off-angle this one properly already. Okay, so we got 2, and that's great, but they're going to supercharger and trade 1 back, and they can do that because we didn't just hard wipe them here, which quite frankly we should have. Now they're going to trade a second one back, and things start looking bad. Okay, so we go in there. That's potentially just to buy time for the rotation. I don't think that's a real hit. Okay. This is winnable, though. I do favor Dallas over Northwood in this fight if you take it slow, just because of how these resources go out. I would much rather have my Zen on the board than the Brig on the board right now. From a sustain standpoint. Now it's not going to work so well. A, you lost Louis. B, their respawns come back faster. Yeah, okay, that's a problem. And we didn't win a fight cleanly that was on our terms. Dallas didn't win a fight cleanly that was on their terms because they didn't set up right. They didn't pressure out and get a bunch of resources on Northwood on the rotation in through open, through the spawn distance, nor when they went with their big hit of their ball rolling and their flux, were they actually set up properly with their angles. And there was no reason for them to not be set up properly with their angles. Especially because they hadn't elected for the early poke, which, would have made falling back into their angles a little bit harder, but would have been early poke. Okay, so Kastrakan is swapped over to the Soldier instead of the Sombra for a little bit more poke aspect. That's fine. You'd more often see Hanzo in that role, but we're going for Soldier here, probably in part due to the limited high ground on this map. Or it could be his personal hero preference. So here we are. We're like this. We just missed our jump, and in doing so made our comp weaker. We, as the dive comp, do not want to be this tightly stacked. No. No. Keep my Soldier up here. Send my ball through this way, sure, I guess. But then, am I running core through this way at this team? Is that what's happening? Why is my Tracer here? Why is my Tracer not out over here? Why is my Tracer not out over here? Like, I don't want my Tracer stacked. Is it because we're running Rally? No, it's not because we're running Rally. Why is my Tracer here? I don't like this. So, like, we could run over and take out this team. This team is separated enough for us to win right now, but we just gave up our soldier positioning. Our Tracer doesn't have good positioning, and our core is rotating the wrong way. We're rotating our core through their kill box. See, they have a group here and a group here, as opposed to having rotated our core this way. Our ball has to take that risk and go this way, which he did, but then we want our core to go this way. At least tell me, and Petal's not even going to separate and go the other way. Ugh. Ugh.
Pass into the
And, like, I get it, Transcendence, everyone wanted to be close to the Transcendence that you guys knew you were going to use, but the Transcendence is going to be at the dive location, and we all know where the dive is going to finish. The dive was going to finish on top of Lep and his team. So, like, it's okay to go different ways, and you'll still be stronger if you do, but this was the wrong core direction to rotate.
وليهم قوتك. Who's ready to take some punishment?
Yeah, so Dallas didn't get enough done during their Transcendence. Part of why they didn't get enough done during their Transcendence is because they didn't stage that dive terribly well. That said, Northwood did split into a little bit of a concave defensively as they're pushed. If you're going to push into either group, obviously you push like this, you have to push around cover. You push like this, you have to push around cover. And if you push either of these directions, the other group gets to shoot you. So that was good. The correct answer was to go this way heavily and this way lightly, and to keep this over here and really to have something over here. But we'll deal. We'll deal. And if you don't have something over here, you at least have Tracer over here ready to go, hey, let me tie you guys up, distract you a little bit, 1v2, 1v3, while my team then 5v3s your backline. Or your other group.
Allah till May.
Northwood, who are you and what did you do with this team? Why are you guys now appropriately split?
Allah till May.
Okay.
Overtime.
Okay, that's life. So we will head into our I expect that. Yeah. We'll let this wrap up, just so that we all get to see what happened. Desperation Flux. I believe. I no longer believe. Okay, so that's the first map. We have the other maps. Let me just make sure I'm jumping into the right one here. I have it preloaded, of course, because I'm not going to share the codes with everyone. It is Numbani next. Okay. Assuming I can find my mouse. Okay. Technical difficulties. Go like that. Go like that. There we go. Nope, still doesn't want to let me have my mouse. There we go. So, Numbani.
Traveling to Numbani. Ready for battle.
Okay. So let's continue on through here. And now we're heading over to Numbani. So someone didn't pick King's Row, and by someone that would be Dallas. That's interesting. I thought it was in the bylaws that every Overwatch team ever, even if they were bad at King's Row, had to pick King's Row when Escort came up. Are we sure this isn't a mistake? I'm kidding, of course. Okay, so we'll let the opening comps roll out a touch.
Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Okay. And Northwood's choosing to throw a little bit of a curveball. They are choosing to defend Numbani with a brawl comp, and this is a little bit of a curveball. So they have themselves a Reinhardt. To go with that Reinhardt, they have an Anna, not a BAP. Anna's good on Numbani, so that's not wild, but Anna Reinhardt is not the standard combination anymore. So they have themselves a brawl comp. I'm going to call it that just because of the Reinhardts. But then they've got a situation where they've obviously got a flanker, a poke flanker, a diva, and then sure they've got these. So it's a bit of a weird comp. I'm gonna call it a brawly one. Cowman is a bit out of place here on the Reinhardt. That's really the only thing I can say. If this was a Winston, everything would be standard. We'd totally understand it. If this was a ball, we'd be like, your ball player is good enough that they go, Numbani's a ball map, which will happen. We're going to see a much more standard. This is pretty common, even though in most situations Zen Ball Dive is being played. On Numbani, you do frequently see the Winston Anna Dive played. So this isn't at all weird from our Dallas team here. So, is Cowman going to be able to, on Reinhardt, keep up with the fight, or is it just going to kind of go around him? The one thing they do get is it's going to be hard for Dallas to rotate their core, their Diva core, through here, which is normally what you do with Cowman here. The thing that they get, however, is if they're able to dive back here, dive places where Anna might be, Reinhardt is going to be very limited in his ability to help once the dive actually happens with this separated high ground and such. Speaking of which of our Anna spots have we started in for Landon? Landon is sitting with Anna. Oh, okay. Well, that's one solution to your Ryan not being able to help your Anna with split high grounds. Put your Anna on top of your Ryan. Fine. So let's see the approach that gets taken here. We obviously see how the Northwood decided to initially answer lanes. And when we think about the lanes on this map, we of course are looking at this and thinking there's something through here, there's something through here, there's technically an under, and there's an outside. And it looks like Brig is keeping an eye on outside, Tyler is ready to respond to under or to outside, and then Dynasty is going to poke mid, Diva is answering mid, Reinhardt Anna is answering high ground, and Brig will of course come and back them up there. Sure, that makes sense. I do not like this. This is very one-dimensional. This is a very one-dimensional dive. Petal took a different path, but the rest of Dallas thinks they can all go down mid. I disagree entirely. Okay, this is better. This is better, but I don't like that we're letting this happen, that we're doing this so late. There was never a scenario in which I wanted to send 5 people down mid here. Wasn't happening. So I don't like that we didn't just initially take this angle, to be perfectly honest. We are late with this rotation, as far as I'm concerned, and while we're being late on this rotation, our team is going to fall behind in a poke battle. And it's Anna, so it might not feel as bad. Artsy can heal his team up a lot faster than he could when he was on Zen, though he's going to have to self-nade or grab a health pack, which sucks a little bit, but like, this is just a mistake that we're delaying this. We make it take longer, so we lose more time. We give this team more time to potentially get an elimination on us, to outpoke us. Not really great. That said, maybe you're trying to bait them in. Okay, we're sort of off cycle now. We're rotating out our tank soft dives here. Our tanks are off cycle. So we had our Winston sort of do a jump for nothing, then we had our Diva do a jump for nothing. Now we're having our Winston do what I generally consider to be a soft dive, but this looks like we're triggering a real piece of our dive because, we're revealing that we took this angle. This is our first move from this direction, and our Winston's going in, but our Diva definitely doesn't have boosters to join in on this. So what's Petal up to? What's Petal actually up to? As this dive is happening, Petal's going to put pressure on Dynasty, which is perfectly reasonable. Our Diva's going to be late to this like we saw. Artsy's going to struggle to contribute to this, getting some weaving in here. But ultimately that works out. So ultimately it did work out, and maybe the thought here was, hey, we're intentionally going to show 5 here to bait a ton of attention here, and you're just not going to notice when our Echo Mercy leaves, and that's going to make the Echo Mercy hit stronger. I think you could have gotten much the same effect by just peeking with 3 here, personally. By just peeking with 3 here, and just letting your Echo Mercy go in a second and a half late type thing. I really think that would have been fine. I think if you just sort of stood here and let them shoot at you for a second, they'd have gone, oh wait, are you going for a charge nano monkey strategy? What are you doing? And they've started paying enough attention to you, and you could have executed this play faster and a little bit stronger. You also could have executed this faster if your Diva had boosters. But we'll look at it. Oh no, I'm wrong. My bad. My bad. You guys still had Diva boosters. I mistimed what you guys did here. So we see this. Diva goes up. Winston goes up. Never mind. I was wrong. You guys went up at basically the same time there, and you do have both cooldowns back by the time you go in. Yeah, I was thinking I'd seen Diva use boosters in the escape, but she hadn't. So this is a better dive than I thought. I still think we took more time off the clock than we had to. Immediately take out the back line. Good play from Kashrakan there. And it works out nicely. And the Reinhardt comp is defeated. And that's one of the disadvantages of going, hey, well, I'll play my Ana here. If I play my Ana and Brig here, rather than playing my Ana in one of the two more standard spots, I'm going to be safe. Well, no, you're not going to get maybe dove quite as hard, but like you're actually more vulnerable. This is a pretty standard Ana spot. This is a little safer Ana spot, but you can't help this lane if you take this Ana spot. But if you take this Ana spot, while you can get peel from shorter range heroes like Reinhardt, you're of course more vulnerable to this lane, the dive from this direction, and this dive becomes a shorter dive as well. So a little bit of a disadvantage there. And it was punished well.
Objective lost. Stop the payload.
Okay, so here we are. Let's see what we're looking at. And now we're going to see a swap over to... This is a bit tough on the ult reset because they've flipped who's playing what. You thought Cowman was your Reinhardt, but now they want Season to go back to main tanking. He's now played our Winston and or Orisa. And that's a little bit awkward because it forces some double swaps, things like that. And in this case, we're now going, well, we want to play double bubble for the rest of the map. And I'm potentially okay with this, but look at this ult charge. Look at this ult charge. And we also felt that we wanted BAP for our double bubble rather than Ana, so we've reset this as well. So I'm going to scratch my head at this one a little bit. I think this probably comes from people a little too independently picking what they're playing, not having quite a central enough authority in terms of what's the comp. Everyone's going to have some freedom to adjust, DPS players especially, but everyone has some freedom to adjust once you're at a good enough level. It's not like once you've experienced as a team, it's not like we mandate you play this at all times, how dare you, whatever. But I think what we're probably seeing here is a little bit, at least with this swap, of these guys are used to as they're sort of trolling in some parts of collegiate. When they're not struggling, when they're not up against another challenging team, they do have a tendency to play wild heroes. Oh, let's go play Doomfist plus, Mercy type stuff. Things like that, where it's like, wait, these aren't real comps. They have a little bit of a tendency to do that. And some of that might be pushing through and biting them here. It might not be. This might be, hey, how they want to play double bubble with the BAP, but I'm surprised to see that we're dropping our Ana to go BAP, and now we've reset for, like, we have no ult charge here. This is not good. And we're playing into a team that will have ults after the next fight, so this is going to hurt a little. Okay, Dynasty goes down. That's unfortunate. I don't like that Dallas has got no control of this lane. They're right to go get high ground up here. This is good. I like this, but they're putting a little too much focus on this high ground here. And I don't really like that. This high ground is important. This high ground is really important. It's not so important that we need to commit all of this to this. I would like either to have my Winston here for the cross hit, or to have my Tracer here to, once we hit things and they get knocked to the ground or whatever, be able to just sweep, clean them up, shoot from below, whatever the case may be there. It may feel a little ineffective for Tracer, but having that cross hit just does matter that much. If we were playing a full Brawl team, we might go, hey, let's rotate our 5-person Brawl this way and leave our McCree to off angle from here or something, or our Hanzo to off angle, or whatever the case may be, or drop our Diva down here and have her go across and potentially do a U-turn hit, that sort of thing. But this is not something that really makes sense to go, let's stack everyone on just this high ground control when there is this over here to consider. Like, we've got enough-ish mid control, and I get we're pushed ahead and we're not totally ready for the real fight yet, but even for our staggers, we want something. Okay, is Artsy going to get in trouble to Tyler here? Okay. Was that our nade? Let's watch this duel from Ana's perspective. We hear the blanks. That was a double blank. Tyler's not even trying. That's weird. Like, Tyler's just stalling this cart. There's no effort whatsoever to beat the Anna there, which is probably not my favorite, especially with how far ahead the team was. I think Artsy was challengeable there, so I'm going to disagree, Tyler. Does Tyler want to swap? I hope not. You're on a perfectly reasonable hero. Okay. We're once again sort of playing this like we're a brawl team. Again, if you're on a team that is like a dive team, if you're on a team in Overwatch, but especially if you're on a dive team, you do not want to be in a situation where I can draw one line through your entire team. You don't want that. That's not how we play Overwatch anymore. You gotta give me something controlling over here. You gotta. I'm drawing Tracer, but it could be our Winston if we wanted. I would recommend our Tracer. They're kind of just, Northwood is kind of just paying for their swaps right now. They've got nothing to play with. None type is going for the Valk there, perfectly fine. Use it. I have no issue using that to get more limbs there to make sure you get the cleanup staggers. Now we're setting up with our cross hit. Thank you. Okay. We're forcing Soldier back. How chipped are you? Not that chipped. Okay. Why though? Like, I can do this, but again, you guys are really forcing this a little bit. You're forcing this as much like the ball hit plus flux that we did earlier, where it's like right before they come out into the open, while they're still tucked back here, let me just use a lot of power. Let me use nano boost, let me use duplicate, and let me just shove that power in this singular direction. You're collapsing your own angles. You'd set up angles with your echo over here, your tracer over here, that when this team pushed in, they were going to be absolutely punished, pincered, whatever you want to call it, and it was going to suck. But now you're like, no, we're collapsing our own angles by pushing our Echo in like this, pushing our Tracer in like this, pushing our Winston in like this before these things have happened. Like, we could do this to trigger on the Winston. That could be an option, but we're triggering to go this way, and it's like these angles that, like, they can literally just kite our angle to destroy it. We don't want to give them time to react, so we just go first. Right, but if you're going to go first, set up to go first. Like, going first is valid, but set up to go first. If you don't want to give them time to react, totally fine with me, but why haven't you snuck yourself a Tracer behind them? Why haven't you gone, hey, we're going to win this fight up here, drive back their soldier, and then we're going to send our Echo Mercy behind them, and our going first involves our Nano Winston goes this way, our duplicate comes from this direction, that sort of thing. Like, that's how we want to be thinking about this. Yeah. Because right now, they're potentially going to kite a lot of your ult power. And yes, going first has some advantages. It just is generally easier to go, hey, we can go first. We can force the opponents to react correctly at every turn rather than have to correctly parry everything. But, like, you set yourself up to be parried here.
Winston.
See that one more time.
Adaptive circuits.
Yeah, you go in.
Winston.
I do like that our first move is to jump our Winston past them and try to get a little bit there. None types. Oh no, Artsy pushing card a little.
The payload has reached the.
So you tell me. Like, you tell me you guys got the cap. You don't have any eliminations yet, and we've used Primal, Nano, and Duplicate, and we haven't gotten any eliminations yet, and I'm not convinced that we're going to. We might get one or two, but that's 3 ults that we're using to cap a cart that if we just given them literally 3/4 of another second to walk in, we'd have almost certainly picked up 3 eliminations. And again, if you understood their ult economy, they didn't have anything that they were going to do. Maybe they drop a window. Maybe you're tracking and you think that they're going to rally. I don't care. Even if they rally, they're going to lose in that situation. Not that hard, because part of your play is you're double Winstoning them, even if it's nanoed, and rally makes that suck a little. But, like, you guys had this. And again, going first is fine, but set up to take the fight, like understand what it's going to cause, and that meant you had to have an angle to fight them in the place you were triggering the fight. Like I totally fine, set up to have an angle on them in the place you're triggering the fight. Right now, all you did for that is you jumped to monkey past them after the fight had started.
Alla till mig!
Okay, at least they're using some ults back and not getting anything for it. So this fight gets a little better because they use ults back and don't get anything for it, to be perfectly honest. Not your best moment, Louis. I like it. I like it. Yeah, that's just more in there than you had to be, but we're going to get out. And now, even as this fight is going on, we can develop our angles. There's very little reason that we're not sending a Tracer over here to apply pressure, to apply damage. We're going, hey, Echo's done her work. We're healed up here. We're good enough. Maybe Mercy isn't ready to leave yet, but Echo can go over here, start poking, start poking. Wouldn't necessarily poke Tyler yet because Tyler's not contributing yet, but we would start to go, and if there wasn't a soldier here, we would wrap around deeper and go like this. What we'd actually do is we'd just go, hey, keep shooting the monkey in the butt here. That sort of thing. Develop your angles even in the middle of this fight.
Changing position.
Okay, I can live with that. Cool. Please don't leave Artsy to get punished because we're all going for that. And now immediately get me someone over here. Immediately. I want to now get control of this lane or this lane and this lane. And it's very easy to do. You guys have a huge opening to do so. Okay. That's going to hurt a little. That's going to hurt a little. This is one directional dive. You guys might think, oh no, it's okay, we're going for staggers. But like, you're not hard staggering this team. This team is pulled back reasonably effectively. It's not like, oh, in this next second, if all 6 of us press W, we're going to get more eliminations. Set up to win this fight more consistently, more slowly. If there was like 3 of them alive rather than 5, yeah, you could potentially do this and go for staggers. If they were closer to you, you could potentially do this and go for staggers. But they've pulled back somewhat appropriately here. And so you develop this fight. Remember, positioning is generally better than numbers. Positioning is generally better than numbers. Numbers are generally better than ults. So let's use our numbers, because we have numbers and they can't challenge us very effectively, to take our positioning. To go, hey, I can send my Echo Mercy this way through this lane here and then poke from over here. Hey, I can send my Tracer over here. And now this is pretty scary, pretty good. They still can't trigger a dive on your Ana. Your Diva can play on cart. Your Winston can play on cart or walk through here. Your Winston can walk through here. Your Winston can help Tracer take their lane. And then again, we still want to go first, and that's perfectly fine. As soon as they're all out here, we can trigger our dive and win. And by we, I mean Dallas here.
Apagando las luces.
Instead, we pushed in one direction. We didn't immediately get much out of pushing in one direction. Obviously, they EMP, and it sucks that they EMP'd, but if we'd have set up that dive, they wouldn't have been able to EMP until we triggered the dive. And when we triggered the dive would have immediately been more powerful, having come in from multiple directions like that. And even with the EMP, we potentially get 1 to 2 eliminations. And it's like, congrats, you're EMPing, but you're EMPing and you're instantly down 1, or you're instantly down 2 type things, and the fight could still go either way. If they EMP when you charge straight at them with their dive, well, your dive just wasn't that powerful. If they EMP before you dive when you're set up on angles, they can't get many of you because you're spread on angles.
The payload is approaching its destination.
ازيك؟ Hello.
Okay. So we're pushing up here. I like what Zarya's done. We've taken high ground. We're a little bit worried about the cart, so it looks like Dynasty was hanging out over there. Fine. It's a mobile team. I probably want to send my soldier high ground as well here, but okay. This is basically correct. Soldier's going to be poking. That's fine. Don't have quite the high ground control that we like, and they decide, hey, you guys are too close to back, we're going to fall back a little bit. Perfectly fine. They're set up for a corner hold. They don't have energy. They're going to back up again. I can live with that. It's easier than babysitting the card. Is anyone controlling over here? Sombra? 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 Okay, I'll deal. So, Lep is staying relatively close, like Northwood is ready to dive here, and Northwood is not going to dive here, not with our zero energy Zarya. I probably wanted to flip this. I probably wanted to go, hey, Winston's going to have to hold up here, Zarya's going to have to hold a little bit more like here-ish type thing. That's life. Northwood, you guys like stacking entirely too much. You guys like stacking entirely too much. Where's our Sombra? You're kidding me. You're kidding me. And again, like, yes, this core, the Winston can be in front of the core, and then our 3-man core can run in, but we use our soft dives, we use this stuff as time to develop angles for our DPS. When we actually do our real hit as Double Bubble, we should have DPS with developed angles. Fine. Okay, we don't really want the fight to happen right now if we are Northwood, whereas if we are Dallas, we recognize that they just did their soft dive, they just did their first in, and now their second in is likely to be their real one. They didn't develop good DPS angles during their second in, but if we feel comfortable with our resources, which we do, we now see Dallas's... This is good timing from Artsy. As soon as this is over, Artsy goes, we're going in. Or maybe it's Louis who calls that we're going in, but we have the Velt going. That helped us weather their initial engagement. They didn't set their DPS up well. The truth is Cowman didn't get that much energy off of the first dive cycle anyways. They now don't have a dive cycle. This is a weakness in the cooldown cycling from Double Bubble of, oops, we've used one bubble, our developed positioning bubble. We didn't actually have great super safe positioning for our backline before that because our backline was sort of getting better positioning. Our flankers were taking better position during it. And now during this weakness, before the next bubble comes up, Dallas is going to push in. Now, I could complain about Dallas's positioning as well. I will complain about Dallas's positioning as well, but the timing to punish the cooldown cycling here is good. Trying to defend themselves with a grab ultimately shouldn't matter. There's a nano monkey. There should be damage boost. Oh, the visor's going on, so there's no damage boost. Okay. Imagine how powerful that would be if, we had a pedal coming in from over here. This time he couldn't, over here being through the lane. This time he couldn't because we hadn't battled in enough to take the lane yet, but we understand how much more powerful that would have made that. We could very easily have had a pedal coming in from this direction, so Monkey zapping the 4 people here while Danode, while the Tracer's pressuring from over here. That kind of would have been nice. Yes, I get that there was a visor in play. Wouldn't have mattered. Okay, now we're going to have a little bit of cooldown cycling again, where this time we're going to have Dallas should fall back into a defensive concave, much like they have here, where they went, hey, our push didn't work, it didn't get us quite what we wanted, we used a lot of resources and we didn't win, but we don't see an opening. They still have Primal going, let's fall into this position, we've got cover here, we have 2 here, we have 4 here, again, I'd like to develop an angle over here, but this is a defensive concave, where if Northwood pushes into this group, they get shot in the back by these 2, if they push into this group, they get shot in the back by these 4. This is a good maneuver that you fall into when the cooldown cycle goes bad, when you go down someone, when you need to slow it down for more ults to come online because you have 1 and they have 4, that sort of thing.
Adaptive circuits engaged.
Yep. Okay, now we're pushing in with a duplicate for some reason, as opposed to just punishing this Winston in the back, but whatever.
Winston.
Sure. That wasn't the cleanest thing in the world, but I can live with it. Double monkey is scary, but not quite scary, not quite as scary as the raid boss. Good. Pedal played with the angle, that's fine. I like this positioning better with the monkey up here, the Zarya down here. The Zarya has more energy right now. That also helps significantly. Let's see how these teams set up.
وريهم قوتك.
Feeling power.
Probably not something I'd have done. Like, I'm not sure why we nanoed there. Landon?
My tactical visor is
You're powered up. Get in there.
Season doesn't have leap. What do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? Landon. Like, he's setting up defensively because he recognizes that Dallas backed off a little bit. He's setting up for the next fight, and you're like, Season just ends.
powerful.
Okay, like, yay, we're using Nano to zap a monkey a little bit. You guys don't have any angles to have anyone punish this backline. This backline is just going to kite. We're zapping a monkey with Nano Monkey. Like, this team is just going to kite away. Do we think as this happens, we're going to take a pedal? That's probably not how I want to use resources. I probably don't want a Nano to zap their front line so we can try to catch a Tracer unless that Tracer is, like, pre-hacked or something. And if the Tracer's pre-hacked, we're already going to get them. So, like, no. No. Good effort, Jukebox. Ultimately, you do have to recognize that that's a brig and you're feeding. Like, I do appreciate what you're trying to do, which is, hey, I'm going to apply pressure to these guys to try to mess them up as they're following my team to turn them around to deal with me. But ultimately, you didn't want to boop these guys. You can drop on them, but you had to hold your boosters until after Lep booped you, until after Lep bashed you. And you might go, well, Lep was never going to bash me. Well, then you're in trouble. But like, you had to hold your boosters until after bash because now it's a feed. Whereas this could have been I micro missile, I drop, I shoot you from behind, or even I shoot you from here, whatever. Okay, yeah, that's happening. Then I drop and shoot you from here, and you have to pick to either come back after me or go after the monkey. And if you aren't immediately on top of me, I can booster back up here and out. So kind of the right play, but then pop the boosters wrong. Oh, look! Season got eliminated. I'm shocked. Shocked that Season, who was, like, told to int, got eliminated. This is why when an Ana gives you a bad Nano, you just look at her and go, what do you expect me to do? Because, okay, fine. Oh! You got Louis at least. Okay. We'll vaguely call it worth. But, like, none type, nice blaster kill there. Nice blaster kill. But, yeah, was never a good hit. Uh-huh. Pedal's gonna get staggered. Wow. Wow. Okay. Season fed on anything that wasn't Orisa. Fair. Well, that wasn't like real. I mean, that was his fault because he chose to go in with it. But like, you just saw that Nano, or it's like, what was he supposed to do with that? Who was he supposed to get on? I'm sure Landon wanted him to get on Artsy, but he didn't have Leap, and you know, that's why you nano your monkey when your monkey's already going in. You don't nano your monkey to tell them to go in on ladder. It's a little different in organized play, but in organized play, it should still be the coordination is good enough that you don't nano your monkey who's like Leap is 3 seconds away. Yeah. Okay. What? Why do you think you can do this, Dynasty? You just donated EMP. No way. You don't finish that. There's no way Artsy misses those shots. If Artsy misses these shots, I'm going to be annoyed. Yeah, there we go. I'm surprised, actually, that we lost as much as we did here, but, like, we look at this. Dynasty hits this. Okay, at least we have our monkey coming in from over here. I missed that we had Season coming in from over here. That's actually a pretty good Season play. I'd still like better developed angles. I think this EMP is too early, personally. Unsurprisingly, there's, you know, Dynasty does not get his eliminations here, but I'd missed that our monkey was actually set up on this angle and is then able to get Kosh here. Okay, sure. Louis does that, then bounces out. Yep. And you can't really push them. Are you going to feed again, Susan? No.
Nerf this.
Cool.
I'm gonna have to shoot you down.
You guys did not have to lose Jukebox or Pedal there. This is you guys making your own mistakes. This was not the result of the EMP. Okay. Battling up top, 2v1. Winston loses that, obviously. Northwood's Winston's gonna get pushed out. This is good. You don't need to eliminate the Winston. You drive him back. And now you've been able to take this, and now this starts to look good because we can develop angles. With high ground control, we can get control over here, and come this way, and get a nice multi-directional hit. And that's what's gonna happen, right? Northwood may back out of it. No, they're going to re-challenge, but that's okay because this time we have Diva plus Tracer to battle. They're going to support as best they can. Don't go in, Pedal. Don't go in. Recall out. Recall out. Okay. And this is fine. This is what we wanted. This is how that works. You battle for the lane control, and sometimes someone overstays their welcome or can't get out fast enough when they were trying to defend the lane in a 1v2. Cool. Sure. What are we on over there, Louis? Health pack is what we're on. Okay. Yeah, I need to go through this one a little faster. Okay, that's fine. If people have questions, you guys are more than welcome to throw them up in chat. I will go off in my own little world explaining what's going on, and, you know, I hope you guys find that enjoyable, but if you have specific questions about what's going on, let me know. So we're going to see Dallas has decided that to finish third, they want to go Brawl. Totally fine with me. It is an expensive ult reset, and we're pretty late in the match to do that expensive ult reset, and they correctly, Northwood caught that this happened, that this swap happened, and they pushed out a little bit. I'm okay with them pushing out a little bit and trying to punish this team in rotation a bit more here, get Season a level of ult charge, but really get less Season, more Cowman, some energy from a soft dive here that he shouldn't go down to, and then be able to hit them again, because this is nice and in the open. Season might go down. Okay. That was a good wall to help contain him.
60 seconds.
But we are fighting in the soldiers area, and Diva's not dealing with it. Jukebox. Jukebox. You got boosters, Jukebox. You gotta go deal with it. I don't care that you don't have DM. He doesn't know that. It's a really long time for Diva to not solve, or try to solve, you know, partially solve an off-angling hit scan. Like, it's cool that we got the elimination on Zarya. Zarya doesn't have grab. Our priority was the soldier up here. Sure. Good catch. That Winston's going to be unhappy. Primal gets forced. Careful fighting him over there, but you guys know that. Yeah, you're right. He is feeding a bit.
Nerf this.
What triggered your self-destruct here?
I'm gonna have to shoot you down. Time's running out.
You're out of DM.
Attack.
You're out of micro missiles. That's not quite enough. I'd really like your team to be a little closer still before we trigger this self-destruct. I don't mind using this self-destruct to distract this team as you're fighting them, especially because Jukebox is out of DM, just used most of their micro missiles there. The mech has been healed back up some now, but was at about half health, probably when the decision was made. I don't mind the decision of, hey, I want to use this somewhat spent mech, this somewhat low resource mech, but I'd really rather use it a second from now when my Reinhardt is like here, as opposed to still covering in the rotation. Like if you asked it to, you can think of self-destruct a lot like beat, and you wouldn't use beat to rotate in. Like, we shouldn't have to spend ults to rotate in most of the time. We might, however, use our beat once we were in and brawling. Ideally, we'd spend a little bit of health first, but we might use it once we're in and brawling. We probably aren't willing to use it to rotate in. There's exceptions to that. If the enemy team is, like, coming at you with Transcendence, can you break it with self-destruct? Sure, but this is just a little bit early with the self-destruct, because it wasn't forced. Like, yes, we did this because we were low on resources, so we get a little bit of extra value to our ults. But this is really just helping us rotate in, and we don't need it.
I'm back in the fight.
Okay. Petal should develop an off angle pretty quickly here. It's fine. Sure. I probably would have gone deeper with this ice wall because now we're not pushing cart, and that's kind of annoying. Yeah. I also would have 100% used this ice wall time to have Petal either develop an angle over here or develop an angle over here. Like, this is unacceptable that Petal is still right here right now, to be perfectly honest. And yes, there's some divers on the other team, and I see that, and that's annoying. Don't care. If you need Nun-type to help Petal develop the angle, that's perfectly fine. Okay, this is, unfortunately, he's going to run into the hog and leave. That's appropriate. The hog swap is weird. Susan, that hog swap is weird. I'm not going to lie. You shouldn't do that. You're probably doing that because it's overtime and you didn't have an ult, and you're like, hey, if I don't have an ult, Hog's hook is pretty darn good, you know, like that's something that's like instant pick-off power, and I didn't have a self-destruct, a flux, a grab, so it's better than being on Zarya. I'm going to go to Hog. I probably would have still said go Diva. Because you're able to shut down things like windows, or mitigate things like windows. You guys can finish this off. By you guys, I mean Dallas, and that should do it. If it doesn't, you're in trouble. You do need to finish Lep right here. There you go. Jeez. Tyler. Oh, Tyler goes into the push-up emote there. Okay. Okay.
Round 1 complete. Ready for battle.
Okay. So they're going to play the double bubble again. Works for me. And then we're looking at the Anna dive, I'm going to call this, or the Winston dive for Dallas. Whereas we're looking at a double bubble with Genji from Northwood. Okay, let's skip 5 seconds here. We do want to see and talk about where people hold. So we look at this for Dallas, and we have, this is some early poke setup. This is Diva just being ready to support that, as well as to scout. We've set up our Brig over here with Nun-type, and we've gone ahead and set up Tracer here. So Petal is probably deciding which lane to cover. We've got Winston here. This isn't my preferred setup for people, but this is how they're setting up, and it's perfectly reasonable.
3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming.
And then Anna artsy tucked
Defend
back there.
objective
Okay.
A.
Routing power to forward area.
Trying to go in early to get an opportunity to trade a little poke, get bubbled, get energy for Zarya. Doesn't see enough energy to be worth bubbling, apparently. I'm not sure I agree, given that Season went to half health. Okay, out of line of sight before getting bubbled. This is not looking good. I don't think we'd have kept that focusing beam on the Winston there. He's clearly trying so hard to get bubbled. I think the reason this focusing beam gets used is because Kosh is just expecting that the bubbles already come out, and it's really somewhat odd that it hasn't at this point. But you'd immediately cancel this because I don't actually think you're going to finish this monkey anymore. I think his team is close enough that he's going to get plenty of help. Good. Jukebox dropped, gets out, and now you're just in a hard peel to Winston. And this is fine. This is one of these situations where if Winston, in the form of Louis, decides to tie up 1v3 their backline, that's perfectly fine because it's limiting the backline's ability to contribute to help their frontliner, their diver, who's fighting your backline. So this is a situation where what both monkeys are doing is somewhat reasonable. Seasons was a little less reasonable because he knew the Zarya bubble wasn't available, and also he was trying to fight more people, but conceptually that was a point I was trying to illustrate. Yeah.
Taking off.
Okay. Okay, this is fine. You're just going to pressure cook them in here a bit. And you're probably going to call a hit. I know your monkey's a little weak here, but I think you've got bubble available. No, monkey. No, you don't have bubble available. You're still further out on that than I thought. Okay. Artsy? You naded him. Artsy?
Heal up.
I don't care about healing Diva. Diva's out of the fight. What are you doing? Oh, because your monkey's full health. He did just kind of get blown up. Okay. And then you have to peek deep for this. Yeah, okay, I understand what happened. Got blown up pretty hard. The sleep is fine. It was the, I probably wouldn't have said go for the sleep. I'd have probably said go for the heal because the nade was in effect. But generally, the sleep would have been a fine solution there of reduce incoming damage, heal. You know, those both have value for keeping the person alive. That's fine. Okay, so losing the monkey, obviously a little bit of a big deal here. We're in this situation where, not we, but Dallas is in this situation where they're going, hey, we want to do this. I feel like I can push because I've been naded. I am perhaps a tiny bit overconfident here, but this isn't a level of overconfidence that super worries me. Was ready to close the angle, but then whip shotted out of it. Jukebox, you probably have to protect a little bit more at this point, which you try to do. But they just barely get through here. And we didn't DM for some reason. We have full DM. Okay. Trying to trade back for the Echo there. Not happening. Have some angle control. Not quite enough. Okay, that's fine. So, Louis got burst down. Life happens. They're pushing ahead. Let's see how they do here. Now we've taken appropriate lanes as Dallas. I appreciate that. Okay, Nano's coming out from Landon on Dynasty, but Dynasty is still pinchable. I mean, Dynasty isn't really that scary going in by himself here. Yeah, you got it. Why? Why are you eliminated? You don't have boosters yet. You're trying to challenge thinking your team can just fight this. You're reloading in the open. We didn't just tuck back here behind cover when we had the option. Like, if the Nano Echo is focusing on you, I don't need to fight it head on. I'm happy to close the angle while the rest of my team beats it up, and then just reopen the angle because it's going to have to find a new target. Yeah, that shouldn't really have happened. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Dynasty does go down there, but Kosh did not have to.
Objective lost. وريهم قوتهم. The payload.
Louis, why are you going in? Like, your team was
Objective.
dealing with the... So this is a situation where their Echo's gone in, and their Echo's gone in hard. Oh, the Echo's already gone, and now you're choosing to walk again. Okay. So you're doing this, and you're thinking, hey, my Tracer's in there. Sure, you didn't really go in.
Objective lost.
You're keeping them out while they try to deal with Tracer. Sure.
Feeling powerful.
Push, push. That's okay, I guess. Like, they're gonna send Season in. Dallas has sent Louis in. Louis, of course, has the Nano. So, like, if this is the play, Season has to get eliminated. Like, we spent Nano for this. Season has to get eliminated. Good. Okay, good. Push back up. Good. Pedal's got the control he should. Artsy's checking left lane. We knew we were going to counter rally this. We don't have to back off at all. Look, we're fine. We're totally fine. We have our nice concave. I'd have probably said jump your monkey up to high ground, zap from above, just stand your Winston up here, zap down as your team is rounding this corner with their own rally. Yeah, I can deal with the self-destruct here. That's not going to be a problem. Okay. Why are you out so fast, Tutor? So we can do that. We go for our primal. Is it because you're worried about the sleep, so you feel like you need to be mobile? Does Landon still have the sleep? I wasn't tracking, but you would be. Yeah, so I don't really need to leave here. Okay, you sort of sent Lep out, but I'm not even sure I would have used a medium-range leap like you did here. Maybe a short-range leap. Now you're going to have to jump past them again. Yeah. No, we want to bring people back to our team. Bring people back to our team, Louis. Dynasty's gonna push it, force the Echo Duel.
Adaptive circuit.
Dynasty's gonna win the Echo Duel.
Winston. Winston. Огонь по готовности. وريهم قوتك. My strength unleashed.
And they're just sort of gonna force that. Okay. Like, if these fights go somewhat slow and somewhat long, it's a little bit annoying. It's not the best matchup in the world, because obviously we have these situations where if these fights go long, Zarya just gets more powerful. So if we can't find clean winners, it's going to start leaning more in this team's favor, because they're very similar comps. The difference, of course, being Zarya versus Diva. Fight goes longer, Zarya gets to do a little bit more. That said, you do have a little bit more explosive play potential, as well as a bit more peel potential from Dallas's team here.
Bunny hop.
وريهم قوتك.
Okay.
Powerful. And I'm not even angry.
Nice retake. Totally fine to use Nano for that, and Pulse, not a big deal. And now we're going to set up with some control. Louis got high ground. Jukebox is going to back off. Okay, we're holding a little earlier than I thought we were going to. If that's the case, we do need to set our Tracer up in here. It's not really an option. We're going to set Echo up in this lane. We're going to set Tracer up over here. Like, that's what we're going to do, right? So, if I can draw a straight line through red team's probably not doing it right. If I can draw a straight line through blue team's probably not doing it right. You guys are hurting me. You guys are hurting me a little. That said, blue team gets a little bit more of an excuse in that they can develop their angles as their Winston goes in with that first jump. Sure.
Boosters engaged.
Nicely done.
وريهم قوتك. وريهم.
You've got too many resources left. If you're already rallying here, I don't want to use this self-destruct. Like, yes, it does help break their aggression, but you have half of your DM left. You've got basically full health. I don't want to do this. I could maybe do this if this was a situation where we weren't rallying. I'm not really going to want to do this in a situation where Dallas is rallying, especially when there's going to be a Nano Winston that stays on me. Remeching is going to be an absolute pain. Okay. Glad that worked.
Fight for it.
That's not to say we couldn't have still used self-destruct in that fight, even just like 4 seconds later, but hey, it worked. Good. We get some old-fashioned spawn camping.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Winston.
Yep, absolutely. And some of you might find this a little odd that Dallas is using so many ults to try to hold them in their spawn. Like, you're on top of their spawn, they're going to be back in 12 seconds, because they're eliminated for 10 seconds, it takes them less than 2 seconds to walk back here. Like, they get no travel time. Why are you guys using Primal and Nano and Primal and Duplicate? Why are you guys using so many ults, Dallas, right on top of their spawn when each is only getting you a little bit? Well, A, you want situations where the opponents are forced to use ults to break out, like that's in your favor. B, there's some nice mental damage that gets done. C, I'd rather use ults than lose a team fight and feed a ton of ults. So this isn't wrong to be using ults. Are they ulting a little bit heavily without seeing ults come out of their opponents? Yeah, they are. But the concept of using ults in your spawn hold isn't necessarily wrong. That said, I want to look at Louis again here because I want to see our application order of these ults.
Your powered up.
Okay, you just both panicked, and you both panicked on the same situation, and that's why you used both there. Usually you'd only want one.
Огонь по готовности.
Sure. Okay, that's fine. It's still going? Yeah, I do slow form, long form reviews. Like, that's how it goes with me. I'm picking up the speed a little bit because I haven't out at in about 30-45 minutes, but I do long form reviews.
وريهم قوتك. I am strong. Adaptive circuits engaged.
I'm not going to talk about this
Winston.
one too much. I mean, this is kind of in a situation, well, we'll let it play a bit, but here we are. They pushed back. They're in a situation where they go, hey, Northwood has a couple ults they can spend. They absolutely need this cap. They try to touch back here. Doesn't ultimately happen. And okay, they get the touch, but then they're sort of trying to force their way out, and they're having to force their way out into spam through a choke that's getting to be pre-fired at. Angles are being held. You've got a Reaper pressuring from here. You've got an Ana pressuring from here. You've got Dynasty on Echo pressuring from here. This is obviously having to walk into a concave. It sucks. We're sort of having to walk one at a time, where Dallas was. Not too surprising out this one. Because for the last fight, well, eventually Respawns did do the job.
Circuits engaged. Winston.
Ultimately, they want this lock-in, and they are going to spend their Nano and Duplicate for it. And they're going to get a little bit in terms of cleanup for that. Ooh. Okay. I'm not... Oh, that's the Duplicate's Primal. Yeah, that's fine. You can spend that. And now Dallas just needs to regroup and set up here. You'll notice their cart pushing option is they've gone with Brig, not Anna, because they want Anna to be able to heal their team. I'm sure they would swap this once the cart got to a place where Landon can heal the team from cart. They doubled cart for just a second, and now they're splitting to develop angles. This is appropriate. They doubled cart for just a second because that's all the time they could justify before it became more important to go season, take this angle. Dynasty, take this angle. And this is good. We like this. I'd probably also be walking Tyler up this angle or Tyler through this angle, but that's okay. Oh, it's Hirsch, by the way. I don't know why Tyler's in. Hey, Hirsch.
Here you go. Nerf this. I'm gonna have to shoot you down.
Okay. Ultimately, Reaper went and joined Zarya and Winston up there. Angles are pretty powerful. Caution's trying. We've sort of been able to take control of this one angle, but if you win 2 out of 3 lanes, which Northwood has won, you're generally going to win the team fight. Dallas only wins 1 out of 3 lanes. Northwood winning the team fight.
Upgrade detected.
That said, where is this one going to go? We're going to trickle out. Tyler doesn't have Wraith anymore. We come out with the rally. Okay. Grab doesn't catch anyone. That's a couple grabs that haven't caught anyone this match out of you, Cowman.
Bunny hop.
And ultimately, the respawn advantage will do it. Winning the 1 lane was enough to get some limbs, and that, while it's generally not enough to win the team fight, and it didn't win the team fight, once the respawn advantage also gets in there, we're able to do some work.
60 seconds.
Going into this season, no one would have expected University of Texas Dallas to beat Northwood. What a game. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's fantastic. And I'm excited to see a bit of mix-up in the top of the rankings there, it being back and forth and it not just being a, well, it's going to go this way every single time, because it makes a much more exciting season. Much more exciting spectator sport. Okay. So, we're setting up. We've properly set up for a concave here defensively. Fine with me. Tracer's up top. This is why have I not been seeing this the whole time, guys? Like, defensively, you sometimes do this, but offensively, I want you to do this more too, Dallas. Diva over here, Winston over here, Tracer over here. These guys walk in, and Tracer drops behind. We pounce. We also shoot our Echo from this direction. Like, this is how you win. Now set up to do it on offense, too. Don't just YOLO in with ult.
Adaptive circuits engaged.
Okay. Tyler TP's his way past. But ultimately, we were able to hit a nice hard dive back here on their back line, and that should do it. Even with rally advantage, rally goes off the edge. Very nice. Bye, Lep.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Winston.
And that should just be the cleanup. Because this might seem like a situation of, wait, but both teams dove each other's backline. Why did this team win? Why did Dallas win? Well, the answer is Dallas properly set up their dive. They sent Tracer to go get behind. They had angles. They went for those sort of angles. Whereas Season and Tyler just had to be like, super far leap, shadow step, please work. Like, they weren't staged and then dove. They just sort of dove, and that's the difference.
Overtime.
Obviously, there's ults in there. It's a little more complicated, but that's the fundamentals that lead to it. Okay, let's head on to map 3. We can see from this one that there was a bit of a problem. Oh, mouse, please. We're going to try so hard, mouse. Come on. Oh. So if I get my mouse, if I bring it right here, we'll get there. There we go. And now the last one should have been Havana. We look at that. I think there were some double bubble might not be their best comp for Northwood here. It does look like Northwood is happier when they are on Orisa comps based on what we've seen here. They started with the weird, we're going to start on Reinhardt on first points and just immediately got blown up with that. So that wasn't particularly good. We also saw that, hey, they did some of the double bubble. That was okay. They did do some angle development. We like to see that. But there were some situations where, they just kind of fed with their monkey, and that's not going to work too well. When they were on their bunker comp, there's been more of a, hey, why aren't you guys spreading out, taking that second angle? You can really get better punishes if your bunker comp consistently takes that second angle. There's been some weird swaps on their parts that have really hurt their ult economy, in part because they do this, who's main tank, who's off tank thing, and in part because, I don't know, maybe it was just a case of land going, I'm going to swap from Ana to BAP for reasons, that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of ult economy trouble going here too, just based on swaps. For Dallas, I've focused pretty hard on, okay, there's a little too much willingness to just go like this with your dive when you had set up a perfectly reasonable dive in the first place, and there's a little too much surrendering of angles in general. Things like the tracer pedal going up, I'm going to give it up and just go in like that. That sort of, like, I have this angle, but I'm going to go up, give it up, and go in on the same angle as someone else, that sort of thing. That's not just a pedal issue. That's just, pedal comes to mind because pedal's the hero who's most able to do it in a lot of these situations. It's really a team issue that we're looking at. So, and then there's been a couple times where Louis, not as much as Seasons Winston, but where Louis has gone in when, wait, Louis, there's not a good reason for you to be in right now. But that's okay. Let's continue our way through. I was just doing a brief little recap of these guys. So this I would expect to be, well, this would have been Northwood's pick of map because they lost the previous round. It's now 1-1 in this one, and they would have chosen to come here. And that makes sense. They should be able to play Orisa on this map. If they're instead going to choose to play Brawl, I'm a little surprised, but at least they'll play Orisa on defense probably, though they might spawn camp, so who knows. UTD pulled the upset 2 years ago and beat Maryville. They're always shocking. Legendary school. Nice, nice. That info coming to us via Hirsch.
Stop the payload.
Okay, so we've set up here. We have ourselves something a little bit interesting in the form of this is a brawl comp. That wasn't necessarily what I expected Northwood to run on offense, but so be it. And then we have ourselves a situation where the Dallas are running, they are now the ones pulling out the bunker comp. And they've mixed in the Genji. That's pretty normal these days, especially on this map, to mix in a Genji, a Tracer, a Sombra, a Doomfist, something to give you a bit of a different element here. In this case, a dive element can help, both to go, hey, dive through our halts, as well as to help us contest a secondary angle. Now, you should still already have two angles, because Sigma and Orisa should be on different angles. Right now they are, and I appreciate that, but it makes it even easier to contest a secondary angle there. So, we'll see what happens. As well as to bother the other team if they go poke heavy, which is not that unusual when you're poke heavy. Okay, we like it. That Rhine should get shot in the back. This just is not a very good engage. That's a feat. Like, I legit have no idea why they thought they could push their tanks over there. That's literally how it's designed, where it's like, hey, we have half of our team over here, half our team over here. You're going to push in on the smaller half. We're going to shoot you in the back nice and safely, and you're not doing anything like putting Sigma hands in the way. You're not having your core all go in. You sent 2 people in to go fight R2, and now we have 4 shooting them in the back without you having contested these 4. That was a throw. That said, there's going to be a little bit of a back off here because they want some distance. They weren't able to re-exhaust this team enough on the way in. And the reason they weren't able to re-exhaust it enough on the way in was partially it held some of its space after the lost fight, but partially they moved these people out, which meant Louis didn't want to peek this a ton. We didn't get to re-soften this team, so we're surrendering some space so that we have some distance, or so that Dallas has some distance, to soften these guys up again on the way in. They do not want a brawl to happen before they've softened up this brawl team. It's a lot of space we're surrendering now, though. Obviously, we can see that the brawl team has now mixed in double sniper. That makes sense. and that's keeping us a little bit more honest in terms of our control of this flank, or Dallas's control of this flank. Dallas is having to pay more attention in this direction than they'd like. They'd like to be paying more attention to the core and punishing it. No, you can't give up left. You're running from the Reinhardt, and I get that, Jukebox, but we can't fully split it. We can't fully give it up and stack everyone here. We do need to keep elements over here. We've got one element over here right now. I'd like at least a second player over there. No, this is just a slow recipe for loss. We've exhausted Season, but we haven't exhausted them hard enough, and once you get crushed, once you get pinned in like this, if you haven't done enough damage before they get to you, you're going to lose, and you did not do enough damage before they got to you. And the cart got to mostly free move there, so that's a little bit disappointing of a first point hold for Dallas. Worked out quite fine for Northwood. They lost the one fight that they went kind of silly on their initiation with. They didn't contest the core while pushing the other two, and they lost that, but then they were able to hold their space and move up quite nicely. So this is reasonable. I think they're slow. I would not have stacked this hard on cart here. I would have set up more to help close hold this. I like that these tanks pushed up and tried to hold this, because this is sort of the privileged spot, the important spot. A lot of key stuff happens in here, so this was fine. But I needed more players rotated up to support this. We now have Dynasty rotated up here supporting this, but our BAP should already be up here supporting this. Our Widow should already be thinking about over here or over here supporting this sort of thing. Ben asks, what's the level of recruiting involved in programs that are consistently top tier? Have college esports become big enough to offer scholarships? Yes. The top Overwatch schools are offering scholarships. You, by and large, are not going to be finding, full rides, that sort of thing for esports scholarships, but the top schools are offering some scholarship money. Yes. And that's sort of what you do. Getting people to your school is going to be how attractive can you make your program. And that's going to be, okay, how much scholarship dollars do you offer? So, that can partially be dollars. Okay, how much of that? That can partially be prestige of your school. Is like a degree from your school going to be impressive, going to be nice, going to be something that's going to help you out if you aren't, okay, now playing an owl or after owl or whatever the case may be. It's going to be a case of how good are your facilities in terms of, do you have like a esports program culture where people are at your school because they know about esports and they want to do that, and they're like, wait, esports is the new thing, it's hip, it's cool, whatever. There's facilities that are like, basically super advanced computer labs with powerful machines that people can play on, and they're not just available for the varsity team, but they're also available for members of the students to use. Is there an arena for people to watch stuff at, as well as what's your club scene look like, that sort of thing, even if they're on it. If you have a strong varsity team, is that helping pull in attention, which then lets you have club teams, which are going to be interesting there. And then strength of roster. Obviously, legacy or strength of roster, most good players, if all else is equal, are going to want to play with other good players. You can always lead people away, and this is generally what happens in scenes before there's money in them. This strong roster thing happens if the best players all end up on the same team, because they want to be with the best players rather than playing against the best players. You can always lead people out and break people out with money, which is one of the things that happens. But yeah, I'd say these are sort of the factors that are used by recruiters to lure people in different places. So maybe some places offering more money, whereas another place like Northeastern might go, hey, we have more prestige, we're more academically impressive than some of the schools we might be competing against. Whereas something like Northwood or a Maryville might be going, no, we've been great. We, have fantastic schools. Look at all the great people you're going to get to play with if you come play with us, that sort of thing. Or somewhere like Harrisburg might go, no, we've really set up an esports culture here, that sort of thing. So those are sort of what you're looking at. Every program ultimately is going to have warts once you get close to it, but because they all do, because they're all trying to figure it out right now. But yeah, it's developed enough that there's definitely some scholarship money in it. And it's it's the better path than Contenders right now. Like, full stop, it is the better path than Contenders right now. I know I'll get some heat from my former Contenders colleagues there, but this is the better place for players to be right now than Contenders. Did Tyler just get here? Okay, so you're contesting the Widow. This is mostly what you want to do. I don't like that this hit is quite so one-directional. The Dragon's coming from here, the Brawl power's coming from here, the Sigma power is coming from here. I would love to have a Widow coming from over here, Sigma threatening from here a little bit more, or maybe just my Hanzo from up here, but Hanzo ultimately has to be here-ish to get the Dragon through, and I'm okay with that, but I would like some of the pressure on this room from over here. Part of this is, hey, it's being answered by the fact that the Widow was here a second ago, and that's potentially causing Tyler to go, I'm looking for this Widow rather than threatening in here. But this would be a fair bit more powerful if Northwood could be threatening in from here as well. Like, quite a bit more powerful.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
Speaking of recruiting, if anyone watching this is looking to go to a top Overwatch school and they have strong academics themselves, we are talking did well in high school, did honors AP type stuff, and are also at like a literal top of OD trials contenders level, you can reach out to me. You can join my Discord, message me. I will do recruiting, obviously, for Northeastern. And if you don't want to go to Northeastern, maybe your grades aren't quite that hot, you can, of course, talk to me, and I will tell you what the Overwatch scene looks like in terms of what the good top schools are. And, yeah, you might appreciate that. But, hey. Okay, so ultimately, this is disappointing, right? You just went in here, you used your big combo, you're like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and... Sorry, I got wound back a little bit here. We do this, we win this, we get our fight win, great. We're pushing this team back as Northwood. We still don't have any angles developed over here, and it hurts my soul that no one is controlling this. Like, why do I not have a Widow here? Why is my Hanzo not up top here? Like, I want my angles. I want my angles very badly. We've chosen to single cart this whole time. It probably made sense to drop landed back here and be doing a little bit of leapfrogging. Now we'd be back to, we would have our angles developed by now. Oh, look, this Widow can fight us basically on 1 to 2 angles instead of this, which would have made it much harder to fight any of these guys without first fighting this. But we'll deal. Please take angles. Please take angles. Please control left side, guys. It hurts. It hurts. So Northwood here overstayed their welcome. Northwood overstays their welcome up close, given that their Reinhardt is missing. This is what we call a forward poke hold. They went for their staggers. They got some staggers. They kept their forward poke hold, but they were too greedy in how long they kept their forward poke hold. Some of you might disagree and say, no, they just got none type. I don't care that they just got none type. They're a couple poke heroes that are on top of 4 to 5 people right here. Like, that's not going to work very well, and their Reinhardt is still quite a bit back. So they needed to let go of their forward poke and fall back into good, strong angles just a couple seconds earlier than they did here.
Cease your resistance.
Retake with Supercharger. Trying to answer with Window, but it's just too late. They're not going to work. And Window was never really a great answer to Supercharger there in the first place. The Supercharger pumps everyone. The Window was really just going to pump Landon there. I'm going to call that ult a bit of a throw. That said, I also would have said you don't need your own Window. But hey. Okay, let's see how this gets set up. This is going to be really hard to push into with Brawl. I expect to see Season swapping. No, Season is going to make life hard on himself. Let's see where we set up in terms of angles for our poke comp. Jukebox is separating. I like it. Pedal? Why did Pedal get caught? Where was Pedal? Okay. I'll live with that. We'll file that up as unluckies. Obviously, it's not truly luck. The timing wasn't quite right. It was just a tiny bit too greedy, but it was really just a tiny bit too greedy, and I can't really be upset with it. Okay, this is good. Rotating out in such a way. Where they have Sigma here, they have their Orisa Bap here, they have another threat angle from here. This is right, and they're going, we're not willing to give this up. We can't afford to give this up. We don't care that we're down one. We want to get you here as you're walking through the choke. And I'm mostly okay with that. Cowman should go down here. They're going to rally to try to protect him, sure.
Routing navigation system to defense.
Okay. They're stabilizing. Nope, you have to push out now. You guys are rotating out, but you basically abandoned Jukebox by doing so. He was always going to get pushed, and now we're pushing out through one angle. Why did we rotate our Orisa out that hard? So here we are. Call it. You literally push back in. Like, this should have been a double back. This should not have been a rotate to here. This should have been a, and we're going to push right back out here thing. Because even though you're closer to the opposing Reinhardt than you want to be as Orisa here, don't get me wrong, your Widow's right here, your Sigma's over here. You can't make your angles worse, and your Sigma is always going to get caught here. Like, we've sort of left our Sigma out to dry here. This needed to be a fake back and then go right back in type thing. Yeah, we had the angles to win this fight as Texas. That's a little disappointing. Okay, you're gonna try. Is your Genji still alive to get back there to contest? He's trying. Kosh, you've really got to work your way around over to the Hanzo. Okay.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Sure. Okay. Old Shatter would have worked there. Just barely. Kosh has now moved over to the Hanzo here. Petal gets Dynasty, and we are going to use our window to try to get punished there. That should have... No, it didn't really soften them up, so we're just going to come out of that with not a terribly good window. That's a shallow halt. Oh, okay. That's going to work. Landon's going to choose to leave. And now you just go punish the Reinhardt. Yeah, that Reinhardt gets punished. I'm surprised that gets out. Let's see how people do here. Because this is an expensive spot. Like, this is a spot that the Reinhardt comp right here, this should break the Reinhardt comp. The Reinhardt comp should not have been able to rotate through here, but they're covering for their weakness by having gotten right up here and been able to get value out of the Reinhardt while this card is pushing. If this card got stopped here, if this card got stopped here, if these guys had to do a standard push, it would be really hard against this Orisa comp to get this Reinhardt comp through here just because there's so much open space. That said, it looks like they've mostly been able to do it. Okay, let me get back here. Louis, why are you pushing that so hard? So this is happening. I don't know why Louis is pushing that quite so hard. You must see on a limb you think you can finish, but I don't. Yeah. And now Louis just going to get stuck. Yep. That was a bit of a mistake that we're pushing so hard, Louis. And if you look at this situation, what we're going to see is here you are. This is happening. You don't really want to be pushing this team. You want to be pressuring this team, not letting this team get value. You can think of it similar to when we were talking about Winston's or balls going in, where you want to be pressuring this team, but you don't want to be hard pushing this team because you're a poke comp and there's stuff behind you in your backline. We want to take care of the most extreme angles first, and here's Landon being Landon, going positioning, never heard of it. I'm just going to out-frag you. That's not quite fair. But like Landon's over here, there's a BAP over here. Let's eliminate the BAP here. Let's deal with the Reinhardt behind us. Like, let's deal with these aggressive angles, these most dangerous things, before we deal with the most passive angle, which we're going to consider their core right now. So if you want to, as one person or as two people, try to hold their core out, try to stop their core from getting value with your damage, with your shield pressure, all that stuff, that's fine. But you don't want to get aggressive, because when you get aggressive, you demand support resources from your team. BAP healing, Harmony Orb, that sort of thing. This isn't actually the fight we want to win right now. The fight we want to win is this, because this person is both more dangerous to us and more vulnerable to us than these three over here. So we don't want to spend resources pushing these guys past our safe-ish cover. We want to conserve resources while keeping these guys distracted while we deal with these more dangerous but also easier to remove threats. That said, I think we've just had a breakdown in scouting here. Like, okay, Petal's trying to answer a poke threat over there, but like, why can we not get someone back here, Hanzo back here, someone to help our supports deal with this backline nonsense? Like, we just got our Transcendence forced by... We got our Transcendence forced by a BAP that was hanging out over here when his core was over here. Like, can't happen. Can't happen. No. Uh-huh.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
It's another long one. I probably won't finish the whole thing. But I'll probably try and do a recap summary of what, we know about these teams, having seen this when I pull the plug timing-wise. Okay. Ultimately going to try to stabilize. Do stabilize with Supercharger there. Supercharger is a very powerful ult. And this Hanzo needs to be cleared out. Good. Okay, and now it's going to be real tough, and you see Season going back to swap, because rotating back across this would be incredibly difficult, even with half his weight of Shatter or whatever. That said, we're probably going a bit onto a comfort pick for Season with the Orisa. I'm surprised he didn't start on it. So we're going to have a bit of a poke battle, and this poke battle becomes a little bit of a question of, do you guys want to, A, who's going to hold over here? And the answer would usually be Petal, your Widow. And then are you willing to put someone over here? The problem with putting someone over here is that person's going to have a tough time getting out, a real tough time getting out in their rotation across. It's a super long rotation to get out the other way. So if you set someone over here, they're kind of at risk. But at the very least, we need to see someone over here. Our Widow, our Hanzo, something. We're not going to all stack, right? 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 You become more vulnerable to halts, to fluxes, to all that when you stack. A single shield blocks all of your damage. A single window works against all of you when you guys stack like this. That's unfortunate on Dallas's part. That said, I could get mad at Northwood for not having angles too. I absolutely could. Cowman's thinking a little bit about them, but mostly I'm not, because they're not yet deep enough in their rotation to develop them. And when you rotate, you do some of your rotations together stacked through some portions of it, so that you can go, hey, we can block the damage in one direction or in two directions as we're rotating together, because some heroes struggle to rotate a lot on their own. Examples of that would be, hey, Hanzo's going to have some hard time rotating on his own. Brig or BAP could have hard times rotating on their own.
Het universum zingt voor mij! Het universum zingt voor mij!
Flux, tried and true counter to window, sure. Lamp goes down. Problem is that Dallas is too far behind at the fight at this point. This would be this would be an example of Northwood went first, so Northwood won. I mean, sort of. Yeah, kind of. Like, they went first and they were able to put more pressure and force bad reactions. So then when Dallas went, theirs wasn't as powerful. But the real answer here is if Dallas had been properly spread out with their proper angles, with their Widow separated, they've got to worry about a Widow while they're trying to execute their Flux play, and the Widow is never going to get caught in the Flux play. You know, like a little bit more angle control makes the Flux play weaker in the first place. And it makes your offensive play stronger. Tyler, daring, playing the Echo into the double poke into the heavy poke comp here. Where's our hold? Okay. Sure. You may have popped that fortify a little bit early here. No, that's right. And you then decide you can't push it, sure. Okay, so we're going to earn back our flanks, right? Like, we're literally going to lose if they're allowed to develop this angle through here, and we don't, as Dallas, retake this sort of thing. This is helpful. This is helpful. We could make it better. That said, Northwood is doing the right thing with sending people through here. Dallas is doing the right thing by having sent people here. I would like Northwood, and it's quite possible that Landon will go over here. Again, Landon wouldn't usually be my choice for this, but hey. Landon being BAP here. And I would like to see these guys go, hey, let's get back our angle up here as this fight goes on. Let's try to develop that. Obviously, you aren't going to necessarily be able to do it all at once, but there will be opportunities. Hit our window, works out nicely. They're not totally defeated by the window because they have angle control, but their angled people aren't quickly able to trade anything back, so that is going to be the end of that fight. Okay. Dynasty is on the Genji. This is okay. Yeah, I can live with this. We've set our Hanzo up here. We've set this up. Sure. Again, I'm going to want this taken once these guys start to push in, but you don't want that spot yet because it's not valuable yet. It can't free poke yet. Okay, Hanzo's looking to take back that angle. Good, very good. Supercharger, that's probably enough to make light of this. Yeah, it should be.
30 seconds remaining.
No one's positioning was vastly better than the other team's positioning, and Supercharger is a really powerful, and it was at a good timing for when the team was rotating in. And now Northwood will try to push back up. They'll try to get a touch. Maybe they get a touch. We answer Flux with this, but people are going to get eliminated as they stagger onto the card. It's not going to be like 4 people touching.
Sigma.
Okay. Take a quick look here. Sorry, I can give you guys a different view, but I'm actually pretty used to watching wireframes, so it's not that weird to me. And that's desperation. Do I go through... I don't have time for the entire attack. Do I do the first point, or do I do a summary here? Let's watch the first point just to get a little bit of a feel for Northwood's attack.
Ready for battle.
Excuse me, for Texas's attack.
4, 3,
2, 1. Attackers incoming.
Okay. Northwood did decide to go for the close spawn hold. This is pretty standard these days with the brawl. I'm not terribly shocked to see it. And the answer that Texas has chosen to use is a little bit of a curveball. They've said, hey, we're going to run our own brawl comp, but we're going to do some warp bunker shenanigans where they're going to warp their double shield, odd version of double shield, but their Reinhardt Sigma. I'm still going to call this a poke comp, actually. They've got Sigma, Mercy, BAP, and Bastion. So, yeah, we're going to call this a warp bunker. That's what I like to call it. And they just went, we're going to go here. We're immediately going to warp to a somewhat unusual location. We now have a Bastion with a sight line on the cart. So, we're going to either just destroy your bunker comp or your brawl comp, or if your brawl comp runs over here, well, now we can walk anyone to the point, our Sigma to the point, whatever, and we're going to push it. And if you go try to contest him, the Bastion's protecting him. So this isn't my preferred way of breaking it, but it should absolutely work. Sigma's maybe a little early, but is developing an off angle. Louis is pushing up to cart. Okay, so that was pretty good. Pretty good response from Northwood. They went here. They put enough pressure on the Bastion to make him warp away, heal up a bit, and then warp back, but just then taken out by the Storm Arrow when he's back there while Louis is swinging. And is that height-wise? Like, I sort of want to see. Let's see this from Bastion's point of view. Yeah, so we probably went to the cart a little too early here, and we probably weren't able to threaten these guys behind the cart well enough. The cart, amazingly, is good enough cover for them to take this poke battle and not just be totally ruined. So, okay, that's going to lend more credence to my, again, this is not the strategy I recommend to teams when they're trying to break it. I expected that this would work pretty well here. It didn't, at least this time. I suspect most of the time it does, and I suspect if we ran multiple simulations on this, even with these two teams, that this would work, you know, not only work 10% or 20% of the time. I suspect it would work more than that, but that's okay. They hit the res. Slightly different angle now. Their sim is now ramped. I think we know how this goes. Maywall shouldn't matter. You're not getting value out of it. You're just stalling with the Maywall. But they're getting value. They've got 40 seconds off the clock already. Bastion goes down again. Okay. Northwood is handling this better than expected.
Vamos esculachar!
So Northwood has lost people, but they haven't really cleanly lost people. They've been able to mostly trade it back pretty well. They're going to use ults to try to hold because they've lost enough people that they need time to get back. If they don't get back, the spawn hold breaks. They've taken a minute and a half off the cart so far, though. Minute and a half spawn hold, we'll take it. Okay, pushing up for first star staggers. Now a bit of a forward poke hold. Reinhardt's not an amazing hero for that, but he's already up here, so he tends to get used in it. Hanzo is an amazing hero for that. Artsy is pushing carts, which means sustain for the team will be a bit weak. Artsy decides he needs to push his way up for the dragon, but now no one's pushing carts. So Nun type takes over, pushing carts. Forward hold going on. Shouldn't be any more staggers to find, but if this is forward poke, and forward poke will of course get a pick off. We're going to spend ults. It's about sending a message. No, it's actually totally fine as long as you get people. I like it.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Okay. And I don't have time to go further than this, unfortunately. I do long form reviews, and that means we get through what we get through. I've got a paid session coming up, so I'm gonna have to deal with that. But what I would look at with these teams, first off, if you guys have any questions, final questions, please do throw them up there. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Let me know when there's other interesting matches like this that you want renewed. You can of course do that leaving comments on YouTube. You can join my Discord in the description below. In there you can see what I'm streaming, what I'm reviewing, what videos I'm making. You can be here to comment, see when they go live. Oh, I have discussion I want to have about that. Great, be here for it. But as I look at this we obviously see a few things. Seasoned and Cowman, that tank line creates a little bit of awkwardness for Northwood in terms of how they're going to play it, what sort of things they're going to do. I would not have probably opted into their Reinhardt push quite how they did there. And then ultimately they had to swap off it there. That's not to say Reinhardt push is bad. Brawl can be perfectly fine, but I'm a little bit surprised to see that. I definitely wouldn't have opted into, like, if they'd truly been running a real Brawl there. But I definitely would not have expected them to, or I definitely wouldn't recommend teams go, oh yes, set your Reinhardt up here for Numbani first, for example. So if I looked at Northwood, like the biggest piece of feedback that would be the most helpful to them that I would give them would be when they're playing their bunker comps, and they do play these bunker comps, please make sure to more properly set up off angles with people that make sense to set up off angles. Like Landon's going and doing it, and Landon's getting value for you guys by doing it because truth be told, you guys aren't enough. You should do a bit more with Cowman. Cowman is doing some. He would be the person who's sort of doing it second and makes sense to be doing it, but send a soldier with him. Send a May with him. Send a McCree with him. Like, do a little bit more to have your two bunker groups and use those. When we're talking about our city centers, our universities, you guys should, well, we didn't play university, but our city center type things and our gardens, you guys should have split bunker groups that can protect each other so that as they're split, as you have one set of your bunker group here and the other set of your bunker group here, it's hard for either bunker group to get surrounded too hard because even though this might be a kill box for red team, well, this right here is a kill box for the blue team, for the bunker team. And okay, no one really wants to stage there, that sort of thing. Like, it is important and you guys should be doing this. That is something that you need to do. That would be like the most helpful thing you could do. The other thing you could do, you could get some of your swaps a little bit more under control. You can figure out what you want to do on your tank line here a little bit more obviously. I talked individually about some people. I'm going to let people find those in the VODs. I'm not going to individually go through and give everyone individual feedback here. If they want that, they can hire me, they can pay me, they can, be like, hey, go, they can get consulting, whatever. I do coaching, you guys know that. If I was to look over at Dallas over here, the biggest thing I would go is I'd actually go back to their dive and poke comps, and I really, really would get more into this lane things. I know we had Nuntype in here telling us, hey, we want to go first, and like, I'm good with going first, but set up the fight consistently to take your angles. Set up your fight consistently to go, hey, we have, be it with our dive comp or be it with our dive poke hybrid comps, the ability to take angles, and as a bunker comp or as a brawl comp rotates, we should continue to rotate so that we can keep them in a place where we have angles to hit them. We are not going to let our angles be destroyed by just, giving up our angles to dive forward like this. Like, you guys know better than that. You absolutely know better than that. And then I would give one set of feedback to really both of our tanks here of understand a little bit more. Hey, when I'm going in because their backline would otherwise be able, if I'm going in when they're already in, I'm going in because their backline would otherwise support their divers or support their front line. I don't need to go in if their backline can't support their front line. There's just no need for me to go in. I could literally turn around and peel for my own team in those situations. I don't need to go in if the backliners can't already if those backliners that I'm distracting can't already do stuff. And you might be thinking, it's not a distraction. I'm trying to get eliminations. You're unlikely to get eliminations on them unless you catch them somewhat isolated as like a 1 or a 2, and you do it in a coordinated way with your buddy. And if you're doing it in a coordinated way with your buddy, like you and a Tracer catch a BAP, that's totally fine. But most of the time, you and Tracer going in together while your Sigma's throwing orbs, or Winston and Tracer going in while the Ana is there to offer the nano, that sort of thing. So those would be like the biggest things that I would look at for both of these teams right now to level up their game. Anyways, I'll do one final catch up on questions here, and then we're going to go ahead and call it. Hi again. Hey, Magdalena. Hope you've been well. Since you left, you wrote 2 pages and lost 2 games of Overwatch. Have 2 played? Well, I'm glad you got 2 pages of your thesis done. I am less thrilled that you lost 2 games of Overwatch, but welcome back. You're right in time for the end of it. Once again, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't done so already, and I will see you guys in the next one. But this was a fun game to watch. This was a fun match to watch, rather. And I hope we get a lot more like it. I'm excited to see things shaking out in the Overwatch collegiate scene, where we have lots of good teams now that can play at that contenders, trials level, top of OD for some of them. We're happy to see that. This is, becoming a good, interesting, and fun scene to watch. And I recommend you guys keep watching it, take a look at it. If you're enjoying seeing this type of content, I do collegiate news type reporting as well, power rankings, things like that. We covered when Northwood got jumped by ISU last week, where ISU swapped in their roster. I do videos on that scene, so consider subscribing if you want to see more collegiate. I probably will stream more today, but probably not till this evening. That's going to do it. Thanks, guys.